Before the first dawn broke over whispering sands, before the sea first lapped against the shores of memory, there existed a time when secrets spoke themselves into stone. You find yourself here, cradled by the gentle hush of ancient winds, where every ruin, every half-buried column carries the echo of a hands once busy, voices long silent. Dim the lights, breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of your own heart mingle with the steady pulse of worlds forgotten. Imagine the hush of marble halls beneath your fingertips, the cool weight of a tablet carved with symbols you cannot yet read. Feel the soft tremor of wonder as moss-clad walls murmur tales older than any map. Let the questions rise like mist. In your mind, who first bent stone into arch and altar? What longing drove them into the deep? And why, when their cities sank beneath flood or forest, did their names refuse to vanish entirely? There is no hurry here, only the slow unfolding of mystery. Each breath draws you deeper into a tapestry of vanished empires and hidden chambers, where time moves not forward, but in circles, folding inward like petals closing at twilight. And if your eyelids feel the gentle tug of sleep, surrender to it. Let the whispering stones carry you onward through corridors of wonder, past the broken threshold of memory into the dream that lies beneath. In this quiet hour, the world's oldest riddles awaken, not to be solved, but simply to be remembered. Now rest your thoughts, and when you are ready, turn the page of dust and begin. Before your mind drifts beyond the known horizons, imagine a palace rising from the sea like the spine of a sleeping leviathan. Its walls gleam with marble that once caught the first rays of dawn. Columns crowned with carvings of sea creatures, tridents, dolphins and spirals stand sentinel over courtyards paved in mosaics that tell stories older than memory itself. You walk barefoot along those mosaics, feeling the cool sensation beneath your toes as though the ocean's breath still lingers in each tessera. Here, life blossomed in harmony. Scholars debated beneath porticos shaded by orange trees, musicians tuned lyres in alcoves carved from oyster shell, and poets scribed verses on papyrus scrolls so delicate that only the purest minds dared to touch them. In the heart of the city, a broad plaza opens onto a channel of water that reflects the sky like liquid glass. Sailors slipped their slender ships into that channel, guided by lamplight glowing in lanterns of beaten bronze. They carried silks dyed with indigo and crimson, spices that tingled the tongue, and metals that caught sunbeams in secret. Traders spoke of distant lands where mountains smoked with fire, forests whispered under starlight, and roads carved through desert sands carried pilgrims in search of new mysteries. Yet for all its splendor, Atlantis was never meant to last. You sensed the tremor beneath your feet long before the earth shuddered. It starts low, a rhythmic thrum like a pulse deep beneath the ground, as if the planet itself brims with a hidden heartbeat. In the temples, priests paused mid-ritual, their hands frozen above, offering bowls. On the balcony, lovers clinched in an embrace turned still as marble. Even the waves against the outer walls hesitated, holding their breath for a heartbeat of eternity. Then came the sound, not thunder nor tumult, but a low, rolling groan that rose from the deep. The sea itself seemed to sigh in lament, as though mourning the fate of a world it had once gently cradled. You feel the first tremor rippling through the water, ripple upon ripple, until the entire channel becomes a frothing ribbon of white. Mosaics crack like dull thunder, collapsing to reveal wet dirt and the bones of fish long fossilized. Columns, once regal bend and fracture, spilling their stone into the hungry tides. You stand in the plaza, wind-whipped and salt-laden, as the ocean climbs the steps like a slow, determined invader. It slides over thresholds, erasing footprints, and pours into rooms where laughter once reverberated. In that moment, the city does not scream. There is no time for fear, only a mournful acceptance, as if the world itself knows this chapter must end. At dawn, when the sky softens from ink to lavender, all that remains is an island of shattered stone, its proud edifices reduced to rubble and coral. School desks lie submerged, etched with the chalky residue of erased lessons. Statues once poised to inspire now recline on the seafloor, faces dulled by currents and time. Lanterns hang from broken beams, sputtering cold light into dusty waters, where schools of fish weave through open windows as though exploring an alien cathedral. You drift above this silent cathedral, weightless and unhurried. The water carries you through ancient halls where the light fractures into prisms, painting floor and ceiling in soft, scattered rainbows. Seaweed drapes like hushed drapery over collapsed altars. Starfish cling to cracked capitals, and anemones unfurl like gentle guardians in the quiet. In this underwater realm, the city breathes once more, no longer alive in the way it was, but alive as memory made flesh, or rather, water. And yet the mystery of Atlantis is not simply that an empire fell. It is that its story endures in distant lands. Travelers carry fragments of its lore, a line from a shattered tablet, a whispered echo in a dream, a fragment of shell inscribed with strange symbols. Plato wrote of this island of wonders and warned that its sinking was punishment for pride, or perhaps, he hinted, a test for those who dared to seek out impossible truths. You listen to that whisper now, carried on currents of myth and mayfly. Memory, it trickles across centuries, finding ears in scribes who claim to translate its script, in philosophers who hunt meaning beneath allegory, and in dreamers who find solace in its half-buried promise. Some say that Atlantis is not one place but many echoes of a global memory impressed upon the stones of every vanished city. If you listen closely, you can hear the same lament rising from the crumbled ziggurats of Mesopotamia, from the sunken shrines of Ochus, from the buried sanctuaries of Carthage. As you rise toward the surface, ascending through the violet blue gloom, you carry with you more than salt water and the weight of broken columns. You carry a question that clings to your bones. Was Atlantis ever a place on a map? Or was it always a mirror held up to human aspiration and loss? Breaking the surface, you emerge beneath skies untainted by empire, where seabirds wheel above, an empty horizon. The ocean hushes behind you, releasing its burden of centuries into the open air. On the shore, you pause on damp sand, allowing the soft hush of waves to wash away the tremor in your heart. And so, the memory of Atlantis drifts back into legend, half remembered, half imagined, and entirely irresistible. It lives in the lullaby of waves, the hush of ruins, and the patient decay of all that once claimed immortality. Softly now let the silence settle. Close your eyes and feel the echo of the lost city fading into the deep. And as the waters swallowed that city, the silence began to rise elsewhere. Before dawn's first light touched the dusty plains of Sind, the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro rose in silent symmetry, their streets laid out like the soft grid of a dream. You stand now at the foot of a great brick wall, ancient as memory, where each sun-baked block bears the weight of a civilization whose language still sleeps beneath its surface. Touch the cool surface of those fired clay bricks, and you might feel the faint tremor of human purpose, artisans molding each rectangular form by hand, laborers carrying them across dusty paths, and builders stacking them in perfect alignment so that whole neighborhoods bloomed in ordered harmony. Somewhere above, the wind stirs through narrow lanes, carrying the faintest echo of children's laughter and the clatter of water pots on sturdy shoulders. In the lotus-filled baths at the heart of the city, you imagine citizens slipping between tiled walls into pools so vast they rivaled small lakes. Steam rose from the waters like spirits of reflection, and marble benches lined the edges carved with the seal of a unicorn, an elephant, or a dancing goddess. Here one paused not merely to cleanse the body, but to commune, pore by pore, with the living pulse of community. Wander through the market squares where regular rows of stalls once displayed copper vessels, carnelian beads, and brightly dyed cotton fabrics. Traders called out their wares in a tongue now lost, yet somehow you sense their cadence, soft, melodic, tensile like a stringed instrument plucked at twilight. They traded not by weight alone, but by honor, passing clay seals from hand to hand as proof of trust. These seals, stamped with cryptic script and pictographs, fish, zebu, plumed birds, are the inscriptions that haunt modern scholars' dreams. Each carving whispers of administrative ingenuity, the careful tracking of grain stores, taxes collected in barley or wheat, and perhaps even the names of those who ruled this ordered realm. Yet no Rosetta Stone has surfaced to unlock their code, and the characters remain mute, as if the walls themselves guard the secret. You pause beneath an ogee archway, watching morning light filter through broken lintels and fracture into prisms upon the earth. In that fractured glow, the bricks glow from ochre to burnt sienna, as though recalling the kiln's flame that gave them life. Lichen and moss now claim these surfaces, softening edges and lending the ruins a gentle dignity, nature's owned, gentle gesture of remembrance. Beyond the city limits, fields of wheat once rustled in harmony with the monsoon winds, their golden heads bowing in unison to farmers who ploughed shallow furrows with wooden ploughs drawn by bovine teams. Irrigation channels carried life-giving water from glacial melt, splitting the land into a patchwork of emerald and ochre. Today, most of those channels lie silent, their courses visible only as faint, chalky scars on the earth. Yet even in silence, they speak. From the high vantage of an abandoned granary, you look out where the old riverbed curved like a lazy serpent, carrying stories from the mountains to the sea. That river, now diverted or dried, once brought silt rich enough to feed thousands, enabling a density of settlement unmatched in its time. And when the floods rose too high, citizens retreated to brick platforms rising like islands amid brown swells until the waters receded once more. Who were these people, these engineers of brick and water? They left no palaces carved in marble, no monuments of stone to proclaim their triumph. Instead, they built in clay in the quiet confidence that their cities would endure by virtue of their very ordinariness. We find streets laid out in perfect grid, but no palace looms above a common house. Their ethos seems almost democratic, each citizen's chamber as valued as the next. And then, as suddenly as a candle snuffed in the dark, the cities fell silent. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus metropolis, so meticulously planned, began to empty. Scholars have woven theories, shifting rivers, ecological stress, trade routes severed, or perhaps a slow unraveling from within. No great conflagration left charred stones, no conquering army carved runes of victory. Instead, the doors simply closed and people moved on carrying memories in the hollows of their hearts. Imagine the final days. A potter at his wheel, flattening clay into vessels now left half-formed. A scribe dipping reed in ink to trace symbols that would never be read. A mother rocking her child beneath the brick eaves until the lullaby of neighbors faded to an echo. And then, one morning, the streets lay deserted, the only footprints those of stray dogs and wind-blown dust. Centuries passed. Layers of silt blanketed the ruins. New grasses sprouted. The monsoon washed out rivers of mud into channels once trod by sandalwood-laden carts. By the time later travelers came, the walls stood like ghosts, pillars and hearths submerged in greenery, speaking in riddles to those who sought to understand them. Today, when archaeologists unearth those seals and potsherds, they summon the presence of lives long gone. Each fragment is a heartbeat in the dark, a pulse that reminds us human order once thrived here, in balance with the land and the river's gift. Yet the inscriptions remain stubbornly silent, teasing us with shape and form, refusing to divulge the language once used to conjure laws, poetry, and prayer. Now in this quiet hour, you drift among the whispering walls, tracing the cracked bricks with your fingertips as though coaxing a response. Close your eyes and you can almost hear the soft hum of the potter's wheel, the murmur of women pounding grain, children's voices rising in play, and beneath it all, the distant call of rivers, forever coaxing life from the land. As night's velvet cloak settles, let the hush of centuries envelop you. Feel the weight of clay beneath your palm, the resonance of voices that time cannot fully silence. For in those mute inscriptions lies a promise that even when a language fades, the shapes it left behind can still awaken the imagination, stirring dreams as ancient as brick and mortar. Softly now, allow your breath to match the rhythm of monsoon. Rains, the slow, deliberate cadence that once nourished these plains. And if your eyelids flutter closed, surrender to the deep calm that arises when the past and present converge in silence. The script remains quiet, but across the world, another name vanishes. Before the first light of dawn warms the emerald canopy, you stand at the edge of the world's greatest green cathedral. A hush clings to the rainforest, thick as dew, broken only by the soft cry of a howler monkey or the distant splash of water against wet stone. Here, where vines drape like silent curtains and massive buttress roots twist through the undergrowth, explorers once searched for the fabled city of Z legend, spoke of streets paved in polished stone, of grand plazas opening onto turquoise pools, of temples carved with serpents and suns. They called it Zed, a single letter squashed between whispered vowels, yet to its seekers it felt like a promise of civilization lost to time and swallowed by leaves. You trace the outline of an ancient trail, half hidden by moss and leaf. Litter, where the soles of boots and hooves of pack mules once pressed into clay. In the flush of early morning, mist hovers like a ghost above gully and ravine. You sense the hush of ambition that drove explorers down treacherous rivers, men in pith helmets clutching brass compasses, hearts pulsing with dreams of discovery. Their journals speak of fever, of thirst, of rivers thick with crocodile and anacondas coiled like living ropes. Yet they pressed on, weaving through emerald walls of foliage, driven by maps scribbled in London drawing rooms, and by dreams fueled by tales of conquistadors and lost riches. Past a fallen saber tree, you come upon a clearing where stone looms in cryptic silhouette. Pillars stand half swallowed by creepers, their carved capitals, once smooth with tool marks, now brittle with lichen. A broken lintel rests askew atop two columns, creating a doorway into an overgrown chamber. Through that doorway you glimpse walls etched with glyphs, geometric shapes, concentric circles and serpentine lines that coil like whispers in the rock. No scholar's hand has yet deciphered their meaning. Step inside, and the air cools, scented with damp earth and the faint tang of decay. In the dim light, you see rock basins carved flush to the flagstones, perhaps altars or water troughs once filled by mountain streams. Now they cradle rainwater, home to tiny frogs whose bright eyes peer at you like living beads. Dragonflies dance above the surface, and droplets fall from leaf to water in gentle percussion, as though the forest itself is playing a quiet symphony. Beyond this collapsed vestibule lies a plaza, its boundaries marked by kneeling statues of stone guardians, creatures part jaguar, part eagle, poised in silent vigilance. You imagine them once painted in dizzying hues, turquoise, cinnabar, gold, standing resplendent beneath a canopy of banners. Traders and priests would have passed between them, carrying copal incense, obsidian blades, and pods of cacao, so bitter they seared the tongue. Now the statues wear coats of moss and lichen, and morning light filters through leaves to dapple their weathered faces. Turning from the plaza, you follow a narrow stairway carved into bedrock, its steps worn slick beneath centuries of footsteps and rain. The stair descends into a bowl-like courtyard where stones are laid in concentric rings as if to mirror the cycles of sun and moon. At its center, a circular platform stands, perhaps once the stage for ceremonies timed to the equinox. The air here feels charged, as though the very rock hums with memories of drum beats that echoed through the night sky, of dancers adorned with feathers and jade, stepping in time to the heartbeat of ancestral drums. You pause at the platform's edge, closing your eyes to the hush. In that silence, you almost hear the slow drumbeat rising from the earth, matching your own heartbeat. You imagine voices chanting in a language now lost, rising in waves that swelled and receded like the tide, calling to the gods of sun, rain, and harvest. The canopy above glows pale green, and a shaft of sunlight pierces the gloom, illuminating a single glyph carved on the platform's rim, an open hand holding a spiral. What did it mean? Grace? Creation? A map to the unknown? The symbol offers no answer, only an invitation to wonder. When explorers first broke into these hidden courts, they spoke of wonder so profound it rendered them speechless. Some returned to tell of pyramids hidden behind vine-clad hills. Others never returned, swallowed by fever or vanished without trace into the labyrinth of green. In dusty archives you find their fading ink, letters home penned from riverbanks, above cataracts describing glimpses of stone flight over waterfalls, then falling silent across the page. Their last entries speak of discovery and dread entwined. At last we have reached Z, and then a blot of crimson, as if the page itself bled. But perhaps the greatest mystery is why, amid all this splendor, the city fell. Scholars debate, did the river's course shift, leaving canals to stagnant ruin? Did soil exhaustion and drought drive inhabitants away? Or did disease, brought along trade routes, decimate populations too quickly to rebuild? There is no temple of records, no codex waiting to be opened. only a scattered handful of pottery shards, some stained with cinnabar, bearing motifs that hint at distant connections across the jungle. Was Z part of a greater network, or a lone testament to human persistence in isolation? Walking back through the collapsed portal, you sense the forest reclaiming its own. Vines weave through broken glyphs, saplings sprout from cracks in stone, and roots lift flagstones as tendrils in a dream. Sunlight falls in narrow beams, illuminating motes of dust drifting like lanterns in the gloom. You touch one carved outline, the spiral on a battered doorway, and feel the stone's cool solidity beneath your palm. For a moment, you and the ancient builder are linked, hand to stone, question to answer that remains just out of reach. Above, the canopy rustles as a flock of parrots passes through, their bright plumage flashing like living jewels. A breeze stirs, and with it comes the scent of orchid and damp loam. You follow a faint path beyond the ruins, where the river glimmers in a distant eddy, inviting you onward. But the secrets of Z will not all reveal themselves in a single dawn. They await the next explorer's slow steps, the next scholar's careful eye, the next dreamer's whispered speculation. Rising onto solid ground, you allow the hush of the jungle to fade into memory. The dawn chorus swells, bird calls cascading over one another, insects droning a gentle overture. You pause at the tree line, turning back once more to the hidden stones. The glyphs gleam softly in the morning light, silent but insistent, as though urging you to remember them, to carry their story beyond the vines. And now, as you step away, let the jungle cradle your thoughts. Let the silence of Z fill your mind. With its gentle riddle, a question that does not demand an answer, only wonder. Let the jungle sleep. We now cross water toward the edge of myth and stone. Long before the Phoenician traders cast their prows upon the western seas, there lay a kingdom draped in sunlight and silver, Tartessos. Imagine a harbour so broad it cradled hundreds of ships, their hulls laden with ingots that glinted like captured moonlight. You stand now on the edge of that vanished mouth of the Rio Guadalquivir, the soft silt beneath your feet whispering of barges sliding through mist at first light. Here, where the river once curved like an argent ribbon, merchants built quays of hewn limestone, arches rising in elegant sweep to support warehouses brimming with treasure. Their walls bore reliefs of bulls and bulls' heads, symbols of strength, prosperity, and the divine favor said to rest upon Tartessian kings. In the plazas beyond, long tables groaned under bowls of almonds, figs, and honeyed wine as traders from Greece, Phoenicia, and even distant Atlantic isles gathered to exchange not only goods, but tales of winds and waves. You wander down a flight of worn stone steps toward a courtyard where statues once gazed across water basins. A gentle breeze stirs cattails, carrying the faint echo of muted lyres and the glint of ceremonial robes. Priests in flowing garments, white and gold, would have offered thanks to Tin, the sun god, and to Neo, the river goddess whose tears baptized these shores. On carved altars, they laid silver cups decorated with dolphins, their tails arcing, in perpetual leaping, a tribute to the sea that both sustained and threatened their prosperity. Along the riverbanks, workshops hummed with industry. You hear faintly the rhythmic ring of hammer on mold, craftsmen shaping raw ore into vessels of exquisite filigree, earrings in the shape of crescent moons, and ceremonial blades so slender they nearly vanished in sunlight, Tartessian silver. was famed across the Mediterranean for its luminous purity, rivaling even the luster of moonbeams trapped in metal. Merchants prized it as currency and offering alike, believing that such brightness carried protective power. In the markets, bronze weights balanced against silver coins stamped with the triple-towered crown of a legendary ruler, Argentonio, they whisper in ancient texts, a king reputed to have lived 2 centuries, whose wisdom was said to outshine his treasury. His court shimmered with brilliant fabrics dyed in rich saffron and indigo. Poets recited epics beneath porticos, their voices rising in measured cadence, tales of sea monsters subdued, of distant lands reached by oar and sail, of silver so pure it sang when struck by the sun. But Tartessos was more than wealth. It was a crossroads of culture. In the shadow of a grand agora, you sense Greek steles leaning against palm trunks, and Phoenician merchants teaching young scribes the Phoenician alphabet, a precursor to the scripts that would span empires. Here, language itself condensed and shimmered, borrowing letter and word like merchants shared coin. Scholars speculate that the earliest European writing may have taken root in these bustling lanes, among merchants exchanging both goods and glyphs. Crossing a broad plaza still marked by carved threshold stones, you come to a central pool fed by an aqueduct. Water once gurgled through channels beneath marble tiles, cooling the parched Andalusian air. Pilgrims would pause here to wash away desert dust and pray for safe passage on Iberian trading routes. Now reeds have claimed the pool's edges, and cattails sway where marble once gleamed. Yet the gentle burble remains, a living heartbeat that links the past to the present. At night, the city would have lit torches of resin-soaked pine there, flame flickering against the limestone walls like golden tongues. You can almost hear the festival drums echoing down cobblestone streets, dancers in animal masks leaping to the rhythm of tambourines, their footsteps stirring dust that rises like faint silver smoke. Above them, the river reflected the dance, rippling images of movement and light as though eager to join the revelry. Then came the silence. Around 500 BCE, Tartessos faded from histories like a star blinking out at dawn. No battle line scrawled in blood, no earthquake shattered its walls. One morning, travelers found keys empty, workshops cold, and coins left behind in the dust, as if their owners simply walked into the mist. Over centuries, the river shifted its course, carrying away silt and treasure alike. The arches collapsed into the water, and wheat fields claimed the shore where barges once glided. Yet the memory of Tartessos did not vanish entirely. Greek historians wrote of a golden city at the far edge of the known world, of riches beyond imagining. Legends morphed. Over centuries, some spoke of a hidden cavern beneath a mountain piled with silver as high as a tower. Others told of a king who, when urged to share his wealth, replied that he would willingly give all his riches, except the secret of his people's happiness. Archaeologists wading through marshland dredge shards of pottery stamped with bulls. In relief, they unearth silver ingots stamped with Phoenician letters. Every fragment hums with possibility, proof that here, at the confluence of land and sea, a civilization thrived in harmony with nature and neighbor alike. Each scrap of ceramic, each coin, carries a silent plea. Remember us. You stand before a half-buried column, its base still etched with the image of a bull's head. Trace the curves of the horns with your fingertips and feel the coolness of stone warmed by centuries of sunlight. Imagine the artisan's hand guiding chisel to marble, patient and precise, coaxing shape and meaning from inert rock. You, too, can shape memory by holding this fragment in mind, breathing life into stories left half forgotten. As the sun sets, the air cools and reeds rustle in the dying light. Shadows lengthen across fields where columns once stood. In that, gentle gloom. You hear the distant rush of river and the whisper of reeds. It is as though the world itself murmurs for you to linger a moment longer. Close your eyes and the clang of hammer on mould echoes once more in your mind, followed by the soft patter of sandals on stone. Rise now from the silt and carry the hush of Tartessos within you. Let the memory of its silver and song settle into your bones like a second skin. And when you drift towards sleep, imagine that harbour alive once more, lanterns glimmering, laughter rising, and silver vessels clinking in celebration beneath a sky unmarked by time. Where rivers vanish, labyrinths rise. Before the first golden light of sunrise slips across the sands of Upper Egypt, you stand at the threshold of a ruin half swallowed by millennia. Here, where the Nile once glimmered like liquid gold, the lost labyrinth of Hawara stretches its broken colonnades into the pale dawn. Imagine a vast complex, 3,000 chambers, halls more magnificent than the Great Pyramid itself, its passages winding like the coils of a cosmic serpent. The first explorers, led by Herodotus 2 millennia ago, spoke of roofed corridors so long that torches flickered into darkness before revealing the next chamber. You step into one such corridor now, your feet stirring dust that settles around your ankles like ancient ash. The walls, once polished limestone, are cracked and pitted. Fragments of painted relief cling to the stone in ghostly tapestries, papyrus reeds, lotus flowers, and processions of priests guiding sacred bulls. Carry a lamp in your hand and watch. The flicker of flame dance across carved reliefs. In one alcove, a single hieroglyph remains clear, the Ankh, symbol of life, etched with such precision that you feel the hand of the artisan, chisel tapping stone long after the strike of iron has dulled. Your breath mingles with decades of musty air, scented faintly of natron and ancient incense. Beyond the corridor, you emerge into the Hall of Records, a vaulted chamber so vast that your voice echoes like thunder in a canyon. Rows of columns rise above you, their capitals carved with scenes of king in ritual, falcon-headed Horus guiding souls through the duat, and Thoth inscribing fate with the tip of his feathered pen. In the center of the hall, a raised dais once bore a massive granite shrine, now collapsed into rubble that crunches beneath your boots. Imagine archives stacked along every wall, papyrus scrolls, wooden boxes sealed with clay seals and stone, tablets inked in red and black. Priests said these texts contained sacred knowledge, astronomical tables, sacred cosmology, and the hidden name of the labyrinth itself. No later civilization dared transcribe that name, fearing the power it might unleash. You trace your fingers across a shattered pot fragment inscribed with glyphs, wondering whether it belonged to a ledger tracking grain from the Nile's flood or a treatise on the stars. Step carefully through a narrow doorway and find yourself in the subterranean chambers, corridors sunk below ground where daylight never ventured. Here the air is cooler and the hush is absolute. You hear only the steady drip of condensation from unseen crevices, each drop echoing like a distant heartbeat. In pools of stagnant water, you see your reflection doubled by the low ceiling, twin faces peering back at you from two worlds, above and below. Legends say that these underground halls once housed the rites of initiation. Kings, priests, and favored few walked hidden paths to prove their worth before entering the outer world. Torches guided them past walls etched with the names of deities: Anubis, Khepri, Osiris, each name a stepping stone through death into rebirth. Only the initiated knew which junctions to take. One wrong turn could lead to an endless spiral, a tomb of one's own making. Centuries passed. Earth tremors and floods shattered parts of the complex. Sand flowed in like water, filling rooms and burying stone benches beneath a burial mound of desert. By the time later historians arrived, Ptolemies, Romans, Byzantines, the Labyrinth was half lost, its true extent whispered only in local folklore. Travelers spoke of subterranean lakes and rooms lit by phosphorescent minerals, of haunted corridors echoing with ghostly laments, but no one left a map that endured. In the 19th century, archaeologists led by Flinders Petrie uncovered fragments of the maze, stones heaped in sand dunes, column drums inscribed with royal cartouches, and the remains of sunken courtyards. They uncovered rooms with benches carved into walls, suggesting communal gatherings for priests or council. In one chamber, they found a basalt sarcophagus, its lid carved into the likeness of a lotus bud, unopened, perhaps a symbol of potential, unrealized, of a knowledge that never fully bloomed. You wander now through the scattered stones, pausing at a collapsed portico whose columns lie like giants felled in battle. Vines and tamarisk roots embrace the ruins, their growth softening features once sharp with chisel. Cattle graze where priests once trod, desert winds swirl grit through open doorways. Yet in this decay, you find a certain reverence. The earth, reclaiming stone, memory returning to dust. Reflect on the labyrinth's purpose. Was it built to guard knowledge from the unworthy? To house rituals bridging mortality and eternity? Or was it simply the grandest folly of a king's ambition, an architectural boasting that even the gods would marvel at? Perhaps the labyrinth's greatest mystery is that it defies any single explanation, its weight of stone matched only by the weight of human wonder. As you pause beside a fallen block stamped with the name of Amenemhat III, the pharaoh credited with its construction, you feel time ripple around you. He commissioned this maze to stand as testament to his rule, a monument to order in the shifting sands. Yet even his name has weathered to a whisper, known only to specialists whose voices are muffled by academic formality. Here, in the hushed corridors, you restore that whisper to resonance. Now, as the sun rises higher, gold light filters into shattered chambers, illuminating grains of sand dancing like motes in a beam. You feel the labyrinth's pull one last time, a gentle tug at the soul, urging you to remember. Place your palm on a carved stone and sense the subtle groove where countless fingertips have traced this path before you. Each indent is a silent fingerprint of history, marking the passage of seekers through corridors of question. Climb the final staircase to the desert floor where the ruins open to sky once more. Step onto the warm sand, letting it sift between your toes like soft remembrance. Turn back and see the labyrinth stones gleaming in the sun, each block a syllable in a story half forgotten. In that moment you realize that the maze still speaks, not in words or glyphs, but in its very presence, inviting you to carry its riddle forward. And now, allow the hush of stone and sand to settle in your mind. Let the echo of your footsteps fade into the silence of memory. Beyond the maze, a single pyramid stands in silence and does not explain itself. Before you stand the Great Pyramid of Giza, rising from the desert like a colossal thought forever unfinished. Its broad base spans more ground than 20 football fields, its edges carved with such precision they align almost perfectly to true north. Imagine stones so massive, each weighing as much as a small elephant, stacked with the care of a master jeweler setting a gem. The smooth outer casing that once gleamed like polished alabaster is mostly gone now, stripped away by centuries for wind, stone robbers, and human ambition. Yet the core blocks remain, 2.3 million of them, each quarried, shaped, and hauled across miles of shifting sands. Run your hand along one of these stones, feel the slight undulation of its surface, witness the faint chisel marks that betray the craftsman's touch, and marvel at the almost imperceptible gap left between neighboring blocks narrower than a hair. At sunrise, the pyramid's silhouette turns rose gold in the desert glow. Camels stand in silent vigil at its base, their riders sipping tea and tracing ancient lines on sand-drawn maps. You join them on a platform of limestone slabs worn smooth by countless pilgrims and treasure hunters. In that hush, you sense the tremor of history, an idea so bold it reshaped human belief about power, death, and the cosmos. Gaze upward, and your eyes follow the slope to a missing capstone, once covered in electrum, a gold-silver alloy, so radiant it could be seen from miles away. Scholars speculate that the capstone vanished in antiquity, either absorbed into a temple treasury or buried by time, never to be recovered. Its absence lends the pyramid a quiet imperfection, a reminder that even the grandest human endeavor yields to entropy. Step into the Queen's chamber first, accessible through a narrow passage carved into the northern face. The walls here, of red Aswan granite, feel cool beneath your fingers. They bear no hieroglyphs, only the echo of footsteps past. You crouch to enter, and the air deepens in hushed stillness, as though you've passed through an invisible veil into another realm. In the center, a solitary limestone sarcophagus sits empty, its lid long ago removed. Look closer. Its interior shows no mark of a mummy ever laid to rest. Why place a coffin in a chamber never used? Climb the steep incline of the Grand Gallery next, its corbelled walls rising like the inside of a seashell. Your hand brushes the worn groove carved into the granite cornerstones, a channel once used to slide mysterious granite blocks that sealed the king's chamber above. Imagine ancient workers, gleaming with sweat, deft with rope and wooden sleds, raising and lowering these blocks to protect the king's resting place. The gallery's sloping floor narrows until you stand beneath a ceiling 20 stories high, polished smooth so that even torchlight dances in soft reflection. Beyond the Grand Gallery lies the king's chamber, its walls hewn from massive granite, monoliths quarried miles away. The ceiling is flat and low, an architectural rebellion against the corbel arch above, supported by 5-pointed, relieving chambers designed to divert weight. Stand at its heart and feel the oppressive weight of 2.5 million tons of stone pressing down. Here, too, sits an empty sarcophagus, silent and unmarked. Why carve such a tomb and leave it void? Look upward again at the limestone, of which the pyramid is primarily built, blocks cut so precisely they fit together without mortar. Modern laser surveys reveal angles accurate to within seconds of arc. How did the builders achieve such mathematical perfection without iron tools or wheels? Some propose sliding stones, up ramps of mud, brick, and earth. Others suggest internal spiral ramps hidden within the structure itself. Yet no trace of a ramp remains visible today, as if the pyramid's own stone swallowed the secret. Breathe in, and you might imagine the chants of workers echoing through open quarries by the Nile. They hewed the stone under the watchful eye of priest engineers who oriented each block to the stars. The pyramid's corners point to the cardinal directions with absurd accuracy, while its sloping faces align astronomically to the stars of Orion's belt, symbols of Osiris, god of the afterlife. Was the monument meant to house the pharaoh in death, or to serve as a starship guiding his soul among the constellations? Outside, the desert wind carries the scent of tamarisk and date palm from nearby oases. Tourists drift around the causeway that once led from the Valley Temple to the Mortuary Temple, where offerings were once placed on alabaster tables. Now, only broken blocks mark the path, and sand has reclaimed much of the once paved way. Yet the alignment endures. From the valley temple, the axis of procession points directly at the rising sun on the equinox. Even today, at sunrise each spring and autumn, a man standing at the Valley Temple would see the sun ascend perfectly between the Great Pyramid and its neighboring smaller pyramids, a living calendar carved in stone. Historians place the pyramid's construction around 2560 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. He was known to the Greeks as Cheops, a name whispered with equal measures of awe and skepticism. Was Khufu a tyrant who conscripted tens of thousands of laborers into endless toil? Or was he a visionary who cared for his workers, housing them in nearby villages and feeding them with prime cuts of meat? Archaeologists uncovered bakeries, dormitories, and medical tools, evidence of a well-organized workforce rather than slaves broken by hardship. Perhaps the pyramid was conceived as a communal triumph rather than a monument to oppression. As midday heat radiates from the stones, you rest in the shadow of a lesser pyramid nearby, watching sunlight dance across the triangular face of its greater sibling. Cranes and scaffolds from modern conservation efforts dot the horizon, revealing that even today we labor to preserve this enigma. Samples of mortar and paint undergo chemical analysis. Infrared scans seek hidden cavities, drones sweep laser beams across each face. Yet, after centuries of scrutiny, the Great Pyramid remains a question more than an answer. The desert hush returns as the sun dips low. Silhouetted against a fiery sky, the pyramid appears as a massive prism, its edges glowing like a beacon. Bedouin camels sway gently in the soft sand, and hawks wheel overhead in silent circles. In that moment, you feel the pyramid's paradox, an enduring testament to human genius that nevertheless guards its construction in the deepest silence. Lie back on cool desert sand, gaze upon those ancient stones, and let the hush of millennia settle around you. The wind whispers across smooth limestone, carrying fragments of distant star song and the memory of measured chisels. The Great Pyramid endures, not as a solved puzzle, but as a living invitation to wonder. Beneath temples, mysteries are carved in places no visitor ever sees. Before dawn's first glow brushes the sands of Abydos, you stand before a sunken temple that seems older than the stones above it. The Osirion lies hidden behind Seti I's mortuary temple, its massive megaliths half buried in earth and shadow. Imagine stones so colossal, some weighing upwards of 200 tons, that their hewn faces bear the faint sheen of hands long vanished, and their edges align with impossible precision, creating corridors that guide the rising sun on equinoxes. Wynod step down a modern stairway into a hall carved from bedrock, where the air is cool and still. Light filters in from narrow slits above, painting golden bands across submerged flagstones. The water, knee-deep and motionless, mirrors the ceiling's carved beams, doubling each hieroglyph as though to ensure no symbol is ever lost. Here, in this chamber, the divine voice of Osiris, the god of rebirth, was said to speak through the echo of water and stone. The first explorers believed they had discovered the foundation of Seti's temple, only to realize they had stumbled upon something far more ancient. The inscriptions above, Seti's cartouches, sit incongruously on colossal blocks older than his reign, hinting that he merely repurposed an even older sanctuary. You run your hand along the granite wall and feel the rounded indentations of cup marks, ritual hollows for pouring libations in honor of the god-king, waiting still for sacred oil. Stand at the hall's center and gaze down its length. Limestone. Pillars rise like sentinels, their bases submerged in dark water. Each pillar bears diagonal striations, evidence of tools used to dress the rock with sober elegance. Here and there, faint remnants of painted relief cling to stone, the feather of Maat, the crook and flail of Osiris, the outstretched arms of Ankh-Efen-Khonsu, the priest whose ashes once rested within these walls. His name, carved in archaic script, whispers across the corridor like a prayer. As you move forward, the water becomes ankle-deep, and each step sends ripples that distort the reflected ceiling hieroglyphs. In one pool, you see concentric ripples emanating from a single drop, an echo of the Nile's floods that once reached these halls, renewing life and sanctifying fields. The builders carved their sanctuary at ground level, inviting the annual inundation inside, merging river and temple in a ritual of cosmic renewal. Toward the back of the temple, where the chambers narrow, shadows deepen, and the hush grows absolute. Here, the walls are hewn from sandstone instead of limestone, their grains catching torchlight in a warm, granular glow. You crouch beneath a lintel carved with the double plumage of Upper and Lower Egypt, a reminder that Abydos bridged worlds, land, and afterlife, mortal and divine. On this threshold, priests once passed concealed, carrying the mummified remains of Osiris for midnight rites. Venture into the innermost shrine, and the air grows cooler still. The floor here is dry, worn smooth by countless barefoot pilgrims, who came seeking healing or prophecy. In the center stands a monolithic altar, a single block of grey granite, its surface polished to a mirror sheen. Drops of water collected in its shallow depression acted as oracular pools. Priests would interpret ripples as messages from the dead god. Legend holds that tears of Osiris still fall here, renewing the altar with divine presence. Where did these stones come from? Quarry marks suggest they originated near Aswan, over 200 miles upriver. Transported on barges of cedar and papyrus, they journeyed with care, guided by priests whose chants mingled with the creak of oars. At night, torches lit the riverbanks, flickering against sandstone cliffs as the convoy slipped past fishing, villages still asleep. Imagine that slow procession of Leviathan stones drawn inch by inch toward this sacred refuge. It was Sir Flinders Petrie who first cleared the silt and timber from the Osirion in the early 20th century, marveling that the temple's layout corresponded to the constellation of Orion, Osiris's celestial form. The alignment is uncanny. At certain times of year, dawn's light strikes the far wall of the hall in the shape of Orion's belt. Was this by accident or divine design? No record remains of the original architect's intent, but the effect is undeniable. In this place, earth and star converge in timeless dialogue. Yet many questions linger. Why was the Osirion buried in sand to begin with? Did the Nile's changing course, civil strife, or deliberate intent seal its chambers? Some speculate that Seti I, in building his more accessible temple above, sought to conceal the older sanctuary out of reverence or fear of its power. Other theories suggest that a seismic event shifted ground over centuries, gifting the hall to the desert until modern hands rediscovered its grand simplicity. Imagine the moment of rediscovery. Camels tied at the desert's edge, a skiff beached on the dry riverbed, and laborers hauling buckets of sand from a hidden doorway. Each shovelful rang out like a memory excavated from time. As the labyrinth of corridors emerged, alone in suffocating silence, Petri lit his lamp and stepped into the first chamber. The flame's dance revealed pillars alive with reflected hieroglyphs, an apparition of past and present entwined. Today you stand in those same corridors, yet you feel neither solitude nor abandonment. Instead, there is communion between you and the builders, between earth and cosmos, between the living and the once dead god. The water underfoot serves as a mirror not only for light, but for introspection. In its calm surface, you see your own reflection merging with the carved visages of ancient priests. Rise now and retrace your steps toward open air. The sun ascends, warming the desert stones until they glow gold. You emerge onto a platform overlooking the temple above, its colonnade crowned with Osirid statues that once faced east in silent worship. Behind them, the sun-drenched sands stretch to the horizon. Somewhere in that expanse lies the Niles, hidden channels, the same waters that once baptized this temple in divine ritual. Take a final breath of dry, warm air and let the hush of subterranean halls settle in your mind. Feel the weight of megaliths, the precision of ancient hands, the echo of prayers offered in whispered corridors, and carry with you the question carved in every stone. How did humanity's ancestors shape their beliefs so that even time itself bends around their temples? From Abydos to Andi, we cross oceans by stone. Before the sun fully crests the Andean peaks, you ascend the gentle slope toward the zigzagging ramparts of Sacsayhuamán. High above Cusco, the ancient capital of the Inca, these walls rise in terraces of earth and stone, each megalith clutching its neighbor in a silent embrace. Imagine blocks so vast, some weighing over 100 tons, that their faces fit together like pieces of a cosmic puzzle, leaving no gap wider than a blade of grass. You trace your fingers along the seam of two stones. The joint is so perfect you can feel only a hairline indentation, cool and unyielding beneath your touch. No mortar binds these walls. Instead, each stone was shaped with such care that gravity and geometry alone hold them fast, defying earthquakes that rattle the mountainside. The precision is uncanny. Angles align within fractions of a degree, and surfaces bear chisel marks worn smooth by centuries of wind and sun. Step back to behold the fortress's outline. Three converging lines that form a serpent's back, its zigzag profile cutting a dynamic silhouette against the sky. In Inca lore, the serpent signifies wisdom and renewal, an apt emblem for walls that have stood unbroken through earthquakes that leveled Spanish cathedrals below. As the morning light paints each polygonal block in warm ochre and gold, imagine the quarrymen's song echoing across valleys, their tools striking stone in rhythmic cadence. At the base of the walls lies a broad plaza, once thronged with warriors and priests gathering for ritual. You stand on limestone pavement so meticulously leveled that rainwater pools in shallow basins, reflecting the peaks and clouds above. Here, priests offered llama fetuses and maize beer to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, seeking her blessing for the fortress's stonework to endure. The very soil beneath your feet is layered with offerings, potsherds, textiles, and small idols, testimonies to devotion and gratitude. Ascend the ramp carved into the hillside, stepping carefully on stones smoothed by countless feet. On either side, the wall's polygonal blocks shift in size and shape. Trapezoids, pentagons, and rhomboids interlock in complex patterns that defy easy repetition. Each stone was carved on site, hammered into its neighbor until the joint closed like a lock. Modern engineers marvel that even laser-guided machinery struggles to replicate such irregular tessellations. Pause at the first terrace and turn 2. Gaze back upon Cusco, a living grid of red-tiled roofs and church spires laid out in the shape of a puma in Inca urban design. The serpentine walls of Sacsayhuamán form the head of that puma, its jaws open wide in vigilant watch. Imagine the fortress's inaugural festival, Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun, thousands of subjects draped in vibrant textiles chanting the praises of Inti, the solar deity. Drums pounded, conch shells blew, and the ramparts echoed with the rumble of collective breath. Continue your climb to the second terrace, where a solitary monolith towers above the rest. Known as Pachatusan, that which sustains the world, this colossal stone stands at the fortress's heart. Its surface bears subtle concave grooves, channels for ceremonial water flow, and faint traces of red pigment once applied in sacred rites. You lean in to examine a shallow bowl carved into its face, likely used for libations of chicha, the fermented corn beer, poured at solstices to honor the earth's cycles. In that hush, let the wind carry the memory of hammer and chisel, as stones cracked free from the quarry 2 miles distant. They were hauled by teams of hundreds, using ropes of ichu grass and wooden rollers. Llama caravans might have brought supplies, but no wheel ever touched these stones. The Inca revered the wheel for its power, reserving it for ritual drums rather than transport. Each stone's journey was a testament to collective will, guided by architects whose knowledge of geometry and force remains shrouded in mystery. Step onto the upper terrace and find yourself before a wall so tall it feels as though it holds up the sky. Each block here is larger than a house, its weight apparent in the slight tremor underfoot. You study the joining surfaces. Some stones bear lichen and moss in tiny crevices, while others are so smooth they appear polished. It takes a trained eye to see where one stone ends and the next begins, a deliberate tribute to permanence and unity. Beyond the walls, the Cordillera Blanca looms, snow-capped and eternal. The Inca saw mountains as apus, sacred spirits that govern weather and fertility. Sacsayhuamán's walls embrace these apus in visual homage. The fortress aligns to key peaks at sunrise on solstices, marking the Earth's pivot in its annual dance around the sun. Imagine priests reading light patterns cast on the walls, their observations guiding agricultural calendars across the empire. Descending to the plaza once more, you notice the remnants of a circular kalanka, a great hall, where visitors and dignitaries gathered. Stone benches line its periphery, carved directly from bedrock to form concentric seating. Here, the emperor might have received envoys, his presence framed by the fortress's monolithic walls. Though only foundations remain, the spatial harmony communicates power tempered by respect for natural order. In the Spanish conquest, soldiers dismantled sections of these ramparts to repurpose stones for cathedral walls and colonial mansions. Yet even in removal, the Inca legacy endured. Many stones were too oddly shaped to fit mundane walls, so they lay abandoned, waiting for rediscovery. Today, only 20% of the original complex remains, the rest reclaimed by earth and oblivion. Each restored section is a fragmentary victory, a chance to glimpse the grandeur of a world united by stone. As you make your final ascent, pause where two walls meet at a sharp angle. Here, the interlocking polygons converge in a crown-like pinnacle, a testament to human artistry. Lean in and rest your palm on the cool surface, feeling the subtle warmth of sun-baked rock beneath. In that contact lies the bridge between past and present, a silent handshake across centuries. Climb down the final steps and stand once more before the fortress's serpent silhouette. The winds carry your breath away, mingling with the sigh of distant condors. You feel the fortress's heartbeat in the steady thrum of earth beneath stone. Each block, each joint, each terrace whispers, "We endure because we were shaped together, in harmony with each other and with the land." Now let the hush of high Andes settle in your mind. The interlocking stones of Sacsayhuamán guard their secrets in plain sight, inviting you to wonder not only at their geometry, but at the shared intention that raised them. And as you descend toward the city below, carry with you the island of certainty that human collaboration, when aligned with respect for earth and sky, can shape wonders that outlast empires. And across seas, the stones grow even larger and lonelier. Before dawn's first glow brushes the sands of Abydos, you stand before a sunken temple that seems older than the stones above it. The Osirion lies hidden behind Seti the Fern's mortuary temple, its massive megaliths half buried in earth and shadow. Imagine stones so colossal, some weighing upwards of 200 tons, that their hewn faces bear the faint sheen of hands long vanished, and their edges align with impossible precision, creating corridors that guide the rising sun on equinoxes. Wynud, step down a modern stairway into a hall carved from bedrock, where the air is cool and still. Light filters in from narrow slits above, painting golden bands across submerged flagstones. The water, knee-deep and motionless, mirrors the ceiling's carved beams, doubling each hieroglyph as though to ensure no symbol is ever lost. Here, in this chamber, the divine voice of Osiris, the god of rebirth, was said to speak through the echo of water and stone. The first explorers believed they had discovered the foundation of Seti's temple, only to realize they had stumbled upon something far more ancient. The inscriptions above, Seti's cartouches, sit incongruously on colossal blocks older than his reign, hinting that he merely repurposed an even older sanctuary. You run your hand along the granite wall and feel the rounded indentations of cup marks, ritual hollows for pouring libations in honor of the god-king, waiting still for sacred oil. Stand at the hall's center and gaze down its length. Limestone. Pillars rise like sentinels, their bases submerged in dark water. Each pillar bears diagonal striations, evidence of tools used to dress the rock with sober elegance. Here and there, faint remnants of painted relief cling to stone, the feather of Mayat, the crook and flail of Osiris, the outstretched arms of Ankh-Efen-Khonsu, the priest whose ashes once rested within these walls. His name, carved in archaic script, whispers across the corridor like a prayer. As you move forward, the water becomes ankle-deep, and each step sends ripples that distort the reflected ceiling hieroglyphs. In one pool, you see concentric ripples emanating from a single drop, an echo of the Nile's floods that once reached these halls, renewing life and sanctifying fields. The builders carved their sanctuary at ground level, inviting the annual inundation inside, merging river and temple in a ritual of cosmic renewal. Toward the back of the temple, where the chambers narrow, shadows deepen, and the hush grows absolute. Here, the walls are hewn from sandstone instead of limestone, their grains catching torchlight in a warm, granular glow. You crouch beneath a lintel carved with the double plumage of Upper and Lower Egypt, a reminder that Abydos bridged worlds, land, and afterlife, mortal and divine. On this threshold, priests once passed concealed, carrying the mummified remains of Osiris for midnight rites. Venture into the innermost shrine, and the air grows cooler still. The floor here is dry, worn smooth by countless barefoot pilgrims, who came seeking healing or prophecy. In the center stands a monolithic altar, a single block of grey granite, its surface polished to a mirror sheen. Drops of water collected in its shallow depression acted as oracular pools. Priests would interpret ripples as messages from the dead god. Legend holds that tears of Osiris still fall here, renewing the altar with divine presence. Where did these stones come from? Quarry marks suggest they originated near Aswan, over 200 miles upriver. Transported on barges of cedar and papyrus, they journeyed with care, guided by priests whose chants mingled with the creak of oars. At night, torches lit the riverbanks, flickering against sandstone cliffs as the convoy slipped past fishing, villages still asleep. Imagine that slow procession of Leviathan stones drawn inch by inch toward this sacred refuge. It was Sir Flinders Petrie who first cleared the silt and timber from the Osirion in the early 20th century, marveling that the temple's layout corresponded to the constellation of Orion, Osiris's celestial form. The alignment is uncanny. At certain times of year, dawn's light strikes the far wall of the hall in the shape of Orion's belt. Was this by accident or divine design? No record remains of the original architect's intent, but the effect is undeniable. In this place, earth and star converge in timeless dialogue. Yet many questions linger. Why was the Osirion buried in sand to begin with? Did the Nile's changing course, civil strife, or deliberate intent seal its chambers? Some speculate that Seti I, in building his more accessible temple above, sought to conceal the older sanctuary out of reverence or fear of its power. Other theories suggest that a seismic event shifted ground over centuries, gifting the hall to the desert until modern hands rediscovered its grand simplicity. Imagine the moment of rediscovery. Camels tied at the desert's edge, a skiff beached on the dry riverbed, and laborers hauling buckets of sand from a hidden doorway. Each shovelful rang out like a memory excavated from time. As the labyrinth of corridors emerged, alone in suffocating silence, Petrie lit his lamp and stepped into the first chamber. The flame's dance revealed pillars alive with reflected hieroglyphs, an apparition of past and present entwined. Today you stand in those same corridors, yet you feel neither solitude nor abandonment. Instead, there is communion between you and the builders, between earth and cosmos, between the living and the once dead god. The water underfoot serves as a mirror not only for light, but for introspection. In its calm surface, you see your own reflection merging with the carved visages of ancient priests. Rise now and retrace your steps toward open air. The sun ascends, warming the desert stones until they glow gold. You emerge onto a platform overlooking the temple above, its colonnade crowned with Osirid statues that once faced east in silent worship. Behind them, the sun-drenched sands stretch to the horizon. Somewhere in that expanse lies the Niles, hidden channels, the same waters that once baptized this temple in divine ritual. Take a final breath of dry, warm air and let the hush of subterranean halls settle in your mind. Feel the weight of megaliths, the precision of ancient hands, the echo of prayers offered in whispered corridors, and carry with you the question carved in every stone. How did humanity's ancestors shape their beliefs so that even time itself bends around their temples? From Abydos to Andy, we cross oceans by stone. Before the first blush of dawn sweeps across the rolling grasses of Salisbury Plain, you stand before a ring of stones older than kingdoms. Stonehenge, the silent oracle of chalk and bluebell. Each megalith rises like a sentinel, its silhouette carved against the slow, turning sky. Imagine builders hauling these sarsens from quarries 20 miles north and the smaller bluestones from the Preseli Hills in Wales, hundreds of human voices guiding each slab across water and land in a ritual of shared devotion. Step inside the circle and let the hush of millennia settle around you. The air here tastes of dew and distant earth, carrying the faint resonance of flint axes shaping monoliths with steady strikes. Each stone bears the scars of ancient craftsmanship, grooves where ropes once bound them, teeth marks where antler, picks coaxed fractures along bedrock fissures. In morning light, the stone's surfaces glow pale gold, revealing flecks of quartz that shimmer like starlight caught in solid form. Feel the subtle rise of the ground beneath your feet. This is a sacred hilltop that Neolithic peoples found charged with meaning long before the first stone was set. Below lies a vast circular ditch and bank, the henge itself cut in the chalky earth. Imagine those early engineers using deer antler picks and shoulder-driven digging sticks, carving this earthwork in a single season as thousands gathered for building festivals. The bank's gentle crest once framed an inner sanctum where ceremony and calendar converged. Within that enclosure stands the Sarsen Circle, 30 uprights crowned by lintels that balance like the brim of a timeless hut. Walk beneath one lintel and note the perfect tongue and groove joinery that locks stones together without mortar. Run your hand along its underside and feel the drop of lichen-dotted stone beneath your palm, a living tapestry of moss and elusive ferns. Each joint bears witness to human ingenuity long before wheeled transport or iron tools. At the northeastern entrance, two massive sarsens flank the gateway. Here you sense a threshold not just of space but of time. Step between them and you move from the ordinary world into the realm of seasonal rite. In midsummer, the rising sun aligns precisely with that entrance, its golden disk cresting the heel stone in perfect communion. Feel your breath slow as you imagine druids, though no contemporary record names them, standing in silent awe as dawn's first ray splits the sky and lights the hidden axis of the monument. Beyond the Sarsen Circle, closer to you now, the smaller bluestones form concentric rings and horseshoes. Each bluestone weighs on average 2 tons, quarried from volcanic and igneous outcrops 60 miles away. Picture the arduous journey, men and women hauling these stones on wooden sledges over timber tracks, fording rivers on log rafts, chanting in chorus to coax each monolith forward. In the flicker of torchlight, the stones would have glinted with hues of green and purple, alive with mineral sheen. stand within the innermost horseshoe of blue stones and listen to the silence. In that hush, you feel the heartbeat of the site, layers of ceremony woven across centuries. Radiocarbon dates hint at multiple phases. First, an earthwork enclosure around 3100 BCE, then timber posts that fell into rot, then the raising of bluestones around 2900 BCE, and finally, the Sacsayhuamán Monument around 2500 BCE. Each iteration reflects shifting cosmologies, each stone a chapter in a story still half buried in soil. Touch one blue stone and feel its cool, coarse surface, the fossilized remains of ancient seabed compressed into igneous mosaic. Tiny shell fragments press into its matrix, a reminder that these stones were once ocean floor before they became sacred. Markers on a windswept plain. In damp shadow, moss creeps through tiny fissures, softening hard edges and lending an air of quiet serenity to this storied circle. Now survey the broader landscape, the avenue aligning toward the river Avon, where processions once traveled, carrying offerings of antler, pottery, and perhaps even human bone. Along the riverbank, timber circles and wooden henges once echoed Stonehenge's geometry, forming a network of sacred sites that mapped sky to earth. Today, only subtle hollows and crop marks reveal those vanished structures, like whispered footnotes on a vast open page. As midday light warms the stones, you may notice small carvings, cut marks and grooves etched by unknown hands after the main erection. Some suggest Bronze Age rituals left these graffiti marks, cups to hold libations, grooves to channel pouring wine or mead. Others see them as weathered wind etchings, nature's own fingerprints upon human endeavor. In either case, the stones wear their history in layers both deliberate and incidental. When afternoon clouds drift low, the stones turn a cool grey, and if rain falls, droplets bead upon their faces as though the monument itself weeps for ancient truths lost. Each droplet refracts a prism of life, graphite flecks, lichen spores, microscopic algae, microcosms of biology thriving on rock older than dynasties. In that shimmer, you sense the continuity of time, stone carved by human hands, now cradles, new life in unexpected scales. Finally, as dusk approaches, the horizon blushes in violet and rose. Shadowed stones blur into one another, forming a silhouette both jagged and smooth, like teeth in repose. The evening breeze carries the scent of wildflowers, yarrow and hawthorn, sprinkled by preceding May festivals. In that gentle wind, you may imagine the hum of voices raised in ancient chorus, echoing around the circle in chants that honored birth, death, and renewal. Lie down on the soft grass just outside the circle's edge. Feel the earth rise gently to meet you. Let the stones stand sentinel as your breath deepens and slows. In that liminal space between sleep and wake, between past and present, the circle that faces the sky offers its final gift, the quiet realization that some monuments endure not because they explain themselves, but because they ask us to listen. From the plains of Wiltshire, we descend into machines forgotten by the sea. Before the sun's first rays dance across the Aegean's crests, imagine a vessel, its timbers creaking under load, ploughing through brine toward unknown shores. On board, merchants hold treasures of glass and bronze, scholars peer at scrolls, bound with twine. Below decks, hidden in crates and chests, lies an artifact so profound that it predates mechanical genius by millennia. The Antikythera Mechanism. Salvaged in 1901 from a 1st century shipwreck off the Greek isle of Antikythera, This device resembles a dense cluster of corroded bronze discs and gears. Yet beneath incrustation lies evidence of the world's first known analog computer, a celestial calculator that maps the motions of sun, moon, and planets with such intricacy it defies the notion that ancient minds lacked precision engineering. Picture: the diver's lantern illuminating a pile of amphorae and statues. Amid the scattered amphoras, a team lifts a heavy, corroded block. Layers of oxidation crackle, revealing toothed wheels interlocked like the cogs of a modern clock. Each gear tooth is uniform, meticulously cut, and numbered with Greek inscriptions, notations, that whisper of a specialist's hand versed in mathematics, astronomy, and metallurgy. Clasp the mechanism in your hand. Once cleaned, it feels surprisingly light, its bronze cool and smooth where preservation allows. Rotate the main crank gently, and you can almost imagine the wheels turning, one gear advancing to mark the lunar month, another aligning with the metonic cycle of 19 solar years. A pointer glides across a graduated dial, a sun chasing a moon, mirroring celestial orbits with less error than many later medieval clocks. In the open sun, researchers mount the mechanism on a plinth, using X-ray imaging to peer beneath corrosion. Ghostly shadows of gears appear on screens, a differential gearing system dividing the moon's speed into two components, replicating its elliptical orbit. One dial shows the zodiac's 12 signs, another tracks the Saros cycle of lunar eclipses, 223 lunar months long. This machine of the gods once predicted celestial events, blending science with ritual in a seamless dance of bronze and faith. Handle the fragments gently, for each chip and rivet carries the legacy of a craftsman's workshop, perhaps on Rhodes, Corinth, or Athens, where artisans forged bronze plates only millimeters thick. The inscriptions urged the user to turn the crank one click each day to match the passage of time. Imagine a scholar, quill in hand, tracing those markings by oil lamp, consulting Ptolemaic tables to confirm positions of Jupiter and Saturn, ensuring decisions in navigation and festival timing rested on heavenly precision. Return to the shipwrecked seabed in your mind, amphorae strewn across rocky outcrops, human cargo lost to waves, and this mechanism, once a prized instrument, tumbling into darkness as the hulls splintered. For centuries, sand and sea concealed it, gentle currents polishing its edges, microbial action steady on the bronze. Then divers in heavy gear brought it to surface, where science would awaken its secrets. Scholars trace its origin to a tradition of Hellenistic innovation. Water clocks in Alexandria, astronomical models in Pergamum, and Archimedes' own treatises on levers and pulleys. Yet no written account describes a device precisely like this. Hypotheses propose that Hipparchus or Posidonius constructed the prototype to track planetary anomalies. Others suggest workshop collaboration, mathematicians and metalworkers refining gear ratios in pursuit of divine harmony. In modern labs, imaging reveals at least 30 gears, pinions and shafts, remnants of a two-sided instrument. The front displays the sun and moon dials. The back, smaller subsidiary dials marking Olympiad cycles, Callippic periods, and possibly the timing of Pan-Hellenic games. One dial even hints at months named after deities, Thargelion, Poseidion, binding celestial motion to civic life. Festivals, taxes and prayers rose in tandem with planetary alignments, each event an echo of the mechanism's turning cogs. Reconstructive models clatter under the hands of watchmakers and engineers, brass prototypes whose rotating hands reveal lunar phases, diamond-shaped pointers marking eclipse seasons. These reconstructions hum under power drills and spark with the energy of curiosity revived. University labs and museums display replicas, some motorized, others hand-cranked, inviting visitors to feel the wheel's embrace and sense the hum of gears long silent. Yet mysteries persist. How widespread was the Antikythera's progeny? Did nobles across the Mediterranean prize similar calculators? Or was this a lone marvel, its knowledge lost in the turmoil of empire and time? The design's sophistication suggests workshops and schools where gear-cutting techniques passed in secret. Yet, as the Roman world shifted, mechanical expertise vanished from texts until clockwork re-emerged in medieval monasteries. In the hush of a museum gallery, stand before the display case. Readers lean forward, their eyes tracing the bronze fragments. Children press palms against glass, imagining the world the device once charted, a sky unfurled as cogs, destinies calculated by hand. Laser guides trace each surviving tooth, mapping wear patterns that hint at daily revolutions. In those minute abrasions, you sense the rhythm of generations who gazed upward and sought to bind time itself. Consider the paradox. Humanity created analog machines in antiquity, only to spend centuries relearning basic principles. The mechanism's gears remained buried until 1901. Its designs, entombed by corrosion, did not inform medieval clockmakers. Only now, with CT scans and 3D printing, can we grasp its full complexity. In this delayed renaissance, the Antikythera bridges two epochs, the Hellenistic Golden Age and our modern thirst for rediscovery. Pack the thoughts of gear trains and eclipse tables into your mind as you leave the gallery. Outside, the sun has dipped and street lamps flicker on along cobblestone paths. The bronze device, now sheltered in glass, reflects lamplight like a miniature sun. Its shadow dances on walls, a reminder that human ingenuity can blaze briefly, sink into obscurity, and yet, in time, illuminate anew, rest now breathing slowly. Envision the mechanism's pointer aligning with a predicted eclipse, priests assembling on temple steps, mariners trimming sails by starlight, kings consulting charts in breathless anticipation. Let the whir of invisible gears serenade you into quiet thought as the boundaries between sea, sky, and machine blur into gentle wonder. The sea gives and the sea hides again. Let us dive deeper. Before the first hint of sunrise brushes Japan's southern seas, you slip into quiet waters off Yonaguni Island, where the ocean floor suddenly plunges into mysterious geometry. Here lies the Yonaguni Monument, a submerged platform carved from sandstone that unfurls like the terraces of a forgotten temple. Imagine a structure half sunken, half revealed, its sharp edges and right angles defying the randomness of currents and coral. You descend beside a pillar-like projection, a towering vertical wall, its face sliced with precision into flat planes. In the dim glow of your dive light, horizontal ledges and stair-step formations emerge from the sand, as though crafted for pilgrims who once knelt to witness the sea's hush. Layers of marine growth, encrusted shell, soft sponges, and lacy hydroids clothe the stone in oceanic finery, softening its lines but never obscuring its form. Drift over a broad terrace, its surface scored by parallel grooves that suggest channels for water to flow or offerings to pass. Fish dart through the shadows. Striped sergeant majors weave around your fins, and orange anthias flare like living lanterns against the monument's muted hues. In that slow current, you sense the monument's duality, both a natural outcrop, sculpted by tectonic force, and a canvas for human hands, long vanished beneath tides. One prow-shaped edge rises sharply from the seabed, its tip curved as if cleaving waves. You trace its length with your fingertips, feeling the sandstone's grain, fine, compact, yet bearing fractures that hint at ancient stress. Geologists argue over origin. Some insist it is carved by seismic uplift and erosion. Others point to step-like terraces and right-angle joints as evidence of purposeful construction. You hover in the blue gloom, listening to only your own breath and the tick of your dive computer, wondering which interpretation holds truth. Further on, a massive rhomboid block stands alone, its faces smooth and planar. Marine archaeologists have measured its angles. Within a few degrees of true geometry, the sides meet at near-perfect 90-degree corners. Surrounding it lie smaller blocks, some stacked in offset rows, some toppled and scattered like fallen columns. A wall-like formation extends parallel to a ridge, forming a corridor that stretches for yards into darkness. Was this a key for boats? A staircase to a submerged sanctuary? The sea guards its secret with quiet insistence as you swim through. The corridor, beams of sunlight pierce overhead, illuminating particles that drift like sparks in slow motion. Lichen-like coralline algae cling to crevices. Tiny, brittle stars unfurl arms from fissures in the rock. Each life form maps its own pattern onto the monument, creating a living tapestry that fuses the human and the natural. In that interplay, you feel the monument breathe, not as a relic buried in time, but as a living edifice renewed by each tide. Pause at the point where two terraces meet. The lower platform lies 10 meters beneath the surface, while the upper shelf slopes gently toward shallower depths. At certain times, divers can watch sunlight sweep across both levels, painting sharp light lines that accentuate the structure's geometry. In midsummer, you might see schools of silver fusiliers weaving between ledges, their scales flashing, like living mosaics upon carved stone. Imagine the scene above the waves thousands of years ago. Sea levels then lay hundreds of feet lower. What we now explore by scuba was once dry land. Perhaps ancestral inhabitants carved terraces and steps into the sandstone, erecting markers for ceremonies or lookout posts for fishermen. Then, as the Ice Age ended and seas rose, the platform submerged gradually, first only at high tide, then permanently beneath the waves. In that slow inundation, the sacred was baptized anew, offered to the gods of sea and storm. Follow a narrow passage toward a collapsed block field. Here, the monument fractures, splitting into slabs that lean at odd angles. Marine life flourishes in the fractures. Gorgonian fans sway with the current, and clusters of barnacles form tiny towers on horizontal slabs. In places, metal probes have found tool marks, grooves worn into the stone by blunt instruments, suggesting human chiseling rather than wave abrasion. Yet the inscription, if any, remains hidden beneath centuries of growth. Toward the monument's edge, the seabed drops into open blue. Schools of jacks patrol the surge line, and stingrays glide along the sandy slope. The monument's geometry dissolves into natural outcrop, inclined planes and eroded ridges that echo but do not mirror the carved terraces. In that shift, you see the meeting of forces, tectonic uplift, folding rock layers, ocean waves eroding them, and human curiosity attributing order to chaos. Each layer of interpretation becomes part of the monument's story. As you ascend, your bubbles drift upward like tiny lanterns carrying whispers of stone beneath sea. At the surface, you lie on calm water, horizons stretching uninterrupted. The island's silhouette, jagged promontory and soft hills, frames the bright sky. Below you, the monument rests in deep hush, awaiting the next dive, the next measurement, the next question. In laboratories, researchers analyze sediment cores taken from crevices, dating microscopic shells to chart sea level rise. They map every ledge and terrace in 3D surveys, comparing angles to mathematical expectations for man-made structure. Some conclude Yonaguni is an underwater city. Others see termite mound geometry on a grand scale. In the end, both interpretations coexist, layered like the monument's terraces. Close your eyes and imagine the story folded into each slab. An artisan coaxing terraces from rock, a fisherman guiding his canoe at dawn, rising waters turning dry temples into fish-filled sanctuaries, modern divers tracing outlines with flashlights. In that continuum, the monument transcends origin. It is part natural marvel, part human memory, part marine ecosystem, an invitation to wonder at how time, tide, and hands shape the earth. Now, as the sun warms your back and gentle waves lap the boat's hull, let the hush of submerged stone linger in your thought. Carry the geometry of terraces and corridors into your dreams, a reminder that beneath even the calmest seas, mysteries lie waiting to be rediscovered. From ocean to cavern, let us follow absence through hollow stone. Before the first pale light of dawn brushes the rice terraces of Zhejiang, you stand at the edge of a placid pond whose mirrored surface hints at secrets below. Here, hidden beneath gentle hills and bamboo groves, lie the Longyou Caves, 15. Immense chambers hewn entirely by human hands from solid siltstone. Imagine halls so vast they could swallow cathedrals, their ceilings soaring 15 meters overhead, supported by pillars carved from the very bedrock. Step through a low entrance carved into a grassy embankment and feel the sudden hush of subterranean air. The temperature drops several degrees and each breath draws in the cool scent of damp stone. Above you, ceiling beams cut in perfect right angles stretch across the chamber like the ribs of an ancient leviathan. In the dim flashlight beam, you see rhythmic parallel chisel marks tracing every surface. Walls, pillars, benches, all uniformly grooved in horizontal lines that catch shadow and light like water ripples frozen in rock. These markings, each about 2 centimeters wide and spaced at regular intervals, speak of meticulous planning and an almost meditative repetition. No two chambers share the same layout, yet every room bears this signature pattern, as though the workers inscribed a communal heartbeat into the stone. You trace a groove with your fingertip, feel its cool smoothness, and imagine the steady tap-tap of iron tools guided by artisans' hands, day after day, laboring not for shrine or palace, but simply to shape empty space. In the largest chamber, more than 30 meters long and 20 wide, you pause at a rectangular platform raised from the floor. Its top is as smooth as polished jade, telling of countless people stepping across it in ritual or assembly. Surrounding the platform, low benches carved directly from bedrock form a horseshoe. Perhaps they once seated hundreds, villagers gathering for ceremony, elders convening councils, monks chanting sutras in flickering lantern light. Today, the benches wear a soft patina of age, edges rounded by centuries of silence. Wander deeper and discover smaller annexes branching from the main halls, alcoves and recesses whose purposes remain mysterious. One chamber contains a circular depression in the floor, its circumference carved with shallow channels. Did it hold water for ritual ablutions? Did seeds sprout here in seasonal rites of fertility? Or was it simply a lantern well, allowing light from one level to filter down into a lower cave now reclaimed by darkness? No records survive to explain these choices, yet each feature invites speculation as living stone evokes stories unspoken. The walls themselves seem to breathe. In one cave, stalactites drip from small fissures, formed not by nature, but by centuries of condensation seeping through cracks above. Water runs in tiny rivulets along the chiseled grooves, pooling in corners before dripping to the floor. Moss glows a soft green in the lamplight, and tiny snails trail their moisture across the rock. In these damp halls, the boundary between human work and natural process blurs, as if the earth itself collaborates in the cave's slow evolution. How were these chambers created? Traditional tools, chisels, hammers, wedges, would require tens of thousands of labor hours to excavate such volumes. No spoil piles remain, for the removed earth was carried away in baskets or repurposed to raise embankments above ground. Local legend speaks of village elders guiding work by lantern, disappearing as mysteriously as they came once the caves were finished. Archaeologists debate whether the builders were miners seeking stone for construction, monks carving sanctuaries, or an unknown dynasty testing the limits of human will. Light fades as you venture to the far end of the greatest hall. Here, 3 massive pillars stand in staggered alignment, supporting a ceiling so high that your beam cannot reach its zenith. The pillars are so uniformly spaced and proportioned, they resemble classical columns, yet their surfaces bear only the same horizontal chisel marks. No fluting, no ornate capitals, nothing to betray an aesthetic motive beyond the harmonious echo of repetition. In the hush, your footsteps ring like whispers in a vast amphitheater. Pause to listen. You might hear the faint echo of the original workers, soft conversations carried across empty air, tools tapping in distant alcoves, the scrape of baskets on stone floors. In response, a subdued drip answers from a single stalactite overhead. Each drop a metronome marking the centuries since the last human voice. Close your eyes and let the faint vibration of the cave's resonance settle in your chest, a low-frequency hum that feels rooted in the planet's core. When sunlight returns to the pond above, you emerge blinking into morning. The bamboo grove hushes around you, leaves shimmering with dew. Waterfowl drift across the surface, unaware of the vast chambers beneath. You stand where villagers once walked, smiling, unaware that their wells, homes, and ancestral grounds sat atop architectural marvels carved in secret. Modern researchers bring ground-penetrating radar, 3D sonar, and laser scanning to map each groove and volume. Digital models reveal the cave's complex interconnections, hidden tunnels that link chambers, sealed doorways now invisible behind collapsed walls, and passages leading deeper still, possibly into chambers yet undiscovered. As technology sheds light on mapping, the emotional weight of the cave's mystery remains. Why undertake such monumental work without apparent above-ground purpose? Local storytellers offer their own interpretations, that the caves were refuge from invasion, granaries to store rice in cool, dry conditions, or meditation halls for hermits seeking escape from worldly concerns. Some blend legend with faith, saying that immortals taught villagers the cave layouts in dreams, then vanished when the work was done. In every tale, the caves serve as thresholds between the mundane and the numinous, a testament to human yearning for transcendence. Now, as evening falls, return to the pond's edge and let the dark water reflect lantern light once more. Imagine the cave's silent corridors extending beneath your feet, rooms lit by oil lamps, pillars ringing with whispered psalmody, patterns of chisel marks inscribed like sacred text. Though the world above moves on, fields plowed, houses built, seasons changing, the earth below holds these chambers in patient stillness, waiting for each generation to rediscover their depths. Lie back on the grass, Listen to cicadas singing, and let the cave's hush echo within you. In that echo, you carry the question carved in every wall. What drives hands to carve emptiness from stone, only to leave it behind? The earth is not done revealing yet. In India, stone becomes temple. Before the sun rises over the western Ghats, you arrive at Ellora's sacred hillside, where stone meets sky in a testament to human vision. Carved downward from living rock, the Kailasa temple stands like an inverted mountain, an entire sanctuary hewn from a single basalt cliff. Imagine master sculptors guiding their chisels along the rock face, section by section, until what once towered above became a hollowed refuge of endless corridors and soaring pillars. You step onto the narrow ledge that was once the temple's roof, gazing across a courtyard carved from stone so deep that light filters only through narrow slit windows and open sky. Below you, the temple's entrance, framed by colossal Dwarapalas, guardians whose carved faces loom with fierce compassion, beckons. Even from this height, you feel the weight of granite removed, over 200,000 tons dragged away in blocks and chipped fragments, each piece cast aside to reveal the cavern beneath. Descend the central stairway, its steps smooth-worn by pilgrims' bare feet, and sense the hush settle around you. Pillars rise like petrified trees, their shafts adorned with intricate reliefs, dancers in delicate dance poses, gods in meditative repose, celestial nymphs weaving garlands of lotus and jasmine. Each carving is crisp, as though the hand of the artisan froze time in mid-groove, allowing no shadow to muddy the sculpted line. In the southern courtyard, you find the Mount Kailash facade, an ornate mountain sculpted in relief, crowned by shikara spires that mimic natural peaks. Deep-set niches house statues of Shiva in his many forms, Nataraja, Lord of the Dance, Ardhanarishvara, half-male, half-female unity, Bhairava, fierce guardian of thresholds. Imagine priests guiding devotees through sunlit portals to stand before these divine visages, offering flowers and incense in reverent hush. Move into the temple's inner hall, where the ceiling arches in patterned lobes, each carved to resemble concentric rings of lotus petals unfolding above your head. The air here is cooler, scented faintly of incense that lingers in stone crevices. At the hall's far end, the Sanctum Sanctorum awaits, an inner shrine hewn in the likeness of a cavernous womb. In that semi-darkness, Shiva rests as Linga and Yoni, symbol of creation and dissolution entwined. Run your fingertips along the polished plinth beneath the Linga and feel the centuries of offerings. Butter lamps residue, sandalwood paste, and flower petal dust. At dawn, sunlight filters through a small opening, illuminating the Linga in a shaft of gold, as if the mountain itself breathes life into its heart. In that quiet glow, the temple's purpose crystallizes. It is not merely a monument, but a living axis mundi, point of contact between earth, stone, and spirit. Turn to explore the northern gallery, where friezes unfold like cinematic scrolls. Ravana shaking Mount Kailash, Hanuman tearing rock to free his lord, and the churning of the ocean, gods and demons intertwined in cosmic drama. Each scene plays out in high and low relief, animating walls that sway gently under shifting sunlight. The story emerges in stone. Struggle births equilibrium. Chaos yields creation. You feel these narratives resonate within you, as timeless as the stone that holds them. Between pillars, alcoves house secondary shrines to Parvati, Ganesh, and Kartikeya. divine family gathered in solidarity. Their statues bear devotional marks, vermilion streaks across brows, garlands of marigold tracing stone shoulders. Imagine worshippers kneeling here in communal prayer, voices rising in chants that echo beneath vaulted ceilings, merging with the drip of monsoon water from open gutters above. The temple becomes a living choir, each layer of stone amplifying devotion. Cross into the eastern porch, a broad platform framed by ornate carvings of mythical beasts, Makaras, Yali, and Aulos playing Gandharvas. You step into their midst, dusting, your sandals on a carved threshold that bears hidden, feet-shaped imprints, symbolic marks for the god's own footprints. In that moment, you sense the divine presence embodied in stone and ritual alike, bridging myth and reality in tactile design. Above, the ridge from which the temple was carved still rises, its rough basalt face pocked with tool marks and debris channels. Follow these scars upward, noting how each level corresponds to a layer of the temple below. The artisans worked from top down, removing rock to create roof slabs, then carving ceilings, then walls, then pillars, like peeling layers of an onion, until the core remained as sanctuary. Such reverse engineering speaks of vision anchored in architectural precision. As afternoon light softens the temple's pinkish hue, shadows deepen in recesses, inviting you to pause. Here, the border between solid and hollow blurs. One moment you face a wall carved with dancing apsaras, the next you stand before empty air, opening onto courtyard and sky. The interplay of light and void becomes a living sculpture, shifting with every hour, every cloud. The temple breathes with the sun's passage. When evening approaches, lanterns are lit along the porticos, small clay lamps set in carved niches, their flickering flames casting ephemeral life across static forms. In the courtyard, monks begin, their vespers, bells tinkling through corridors. The temple, once silent, hums with subtle vibration, a prayerful murmur, a welcome breeze, the soft echo of sandals on stone. In that transition, living ritual merges seamlessly with carved memory. Descend the final stairs to the base, where the courtyard spills into the open hillside. Turn back once more to see Kailasa's inverted peak, his shadow stretching across, the plains like a guardian's cloak. Feel the rock's solidity beneath your palm, the faint warmth of day lingering in its mass. You carry in your mind the echo of chisels, the pulse of reliefs, and the timeless question carved into every surface. How far will human devotion go to bridge earth and heaven? Lie on the grass beyond the temple's perimeter, letting the echo of stone and shadow settle in your bones. The long day's hush returns as night's veil falls, and the temple's silhouette merges with distant ridges. In that gentle dark, you sense the mountain within the stone, unyielding, eternal, and carved by hands guided by reverence. Even deeper we go now to chambers hidden from sun, sound, and scripture. Before dawn spills its first light over Kerala's backwaters, you find yourself at the foot of Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Thiruvananthapuram, where sacred chants echo through granite halls. Beneath these polished floors lie 7 sealed vaults, A through G, each rumored to hold treasures beyond imagining. Step quietly into the Sanctum Sanctorum, where the deity, reclining Vishnu, watches over worshippers. Sense the weight of centuries pressing down, as though the earth itself guards these subterranean chambers. In the cool hush, before morning prayer, you kneel on smooth granite and follow the temple priest's whispered instructions. The marble plinth above Vault A is carved with lotus petals, each petal a silent promise of hidden riches. As you place your palm on the plinth, you feel the temperature drop, a subtle invitation to enter depths where light never ventured. The first 6 vaults were opened in the 1930s by royal decree. Melted gold, gem-studded chests, jeweled crowns and ritual vessels glimmering like captured sunbeams flooded daylight once held at bay. Yet Vault B, the most sacred of all, remains, tightly sealed. Legends say that Vault B houses not only gold and jewels, but also a portion of the temple's life force, an essence of divine power, too potent for mortal eyes. Attempts to unseal it in centuries past were met with inexplicable misfortune. An 18th century Raja reputedly ordered the vault opened. Within days, a plague swept the city. British colonial officers who petitioned the Maharaja's heirs in the 19th century fell ill with fevers after inspecting the seals. Each new attempt spurred fears that the vault was protected by more than iron and mortar, that a curse lingered in the air, woven into the very stone. You move to Vault A's now empty chamber, where the ground was once carpeted in gold coins of the Chera dynasty, each stamped with lotus and lion motifs. Archaeologists who sifted through the hoard found coins from Rome, Persia and Arabia, proof of Kerala's ancient spice routes. Yet the deeper chambers still hold artifacts unknown to history's catalogues. Temple idols carved in black granite, crowns flecked with rubies, and vessels etched with Sanskrit mantras invoking prosperity. The walls here bear faint scorch marks, perhaps from oil lamps left burning in sacred vigil. Proceed to Vault C, where lichen now covers the carved Sanskrit inscription above the threshold. Beneath the inscription is a carved figure of Garuda, Vishnu's mount, wings outstretched as if to guard what lies beneath. Local priests say that Garuda's spirit watches the vault, preventing greedy hands from violating its sanctity. Scholars note that the inscription invokes Ananda Tandava, the joyful dance of cosmic creation, suggesting these treasures fuel both ritual and myth. You run a finger over the script, imagining ancient artisans hand-chiseled each stroke, encoding both language and blessing into stone. Vault D reveals a staircase cut into living rock, descending into a chamber whose ceiling glows pale green from malachite inlays. When it was opened, temple records say that priests found a jewel-inlaid mace said to have belonged to Parashurama, the warrior sage who reclaimed Kerala from the sea. They also found copper plates inscribed with land grants dating to the 10th century, a legal and devotional archive hidden in darkness for a millennium. The plates, now housed in a museum, speak of temples founded, villages granted, and the divine pact between rulers and Brahmin custodians. Beyond Vault D lies Vault E, where the air still holds a faint scent of sandalwood and jasmine. Here, gold chests embossed with lotus patterns were stacked floor to ceiling. Statues of Venkateshwara and Lakshmi sat atop pedestals, their eyes set with gleaming emeralds. Priests say that opening this vault was akin to parting a veil between worlds. The clink of metal against stone echoed like temple bells, and the sands of time seemed to shuffle forward. As you peer into the dark doorway, you imagine the hushed reverence of those who peered in before you, feeling their awe entwined with your own. Vault F, opened most recently in the 1930s, yielded jeweled goblets and ceremonial swords with handles, shaped like coiled serpents. Some swords bear inscriptions invoking Naga deities, protectors of water and earth. Priests who examined the blades discovered that each hilt was hollowed to hold sacred ash, turning the weapon into both symbol and vessel. The blades themselves, forged from wood steel, reflect sunbeams in rippling patterns, proof of advanced metallurgical knowledge lost after colonial upheaval. And now Vault G, Vault B's counterpart, stands as the last threshold before the sealed chamber. Here, temple custodians gather before first light to perform japa mantras, seeking divine sanction before any attempt to breach the stone. The seal itself is a round iron plate riveted through the rock with 6 pegs, each bearing an insignia of a royal dynasty. Many have studied its metallurgy. Modern experts confirm the iron's composition predates local forging techniques, hinting at foreign origin or divine intervention. The rivets no longer even seem to have shifted with the Earth's slow breath. You stand before Vault B, the original chamber carved in the 8th century by skilled Brahmin masons. The walls here bear carvings of celestial nymphs dancing above, lotus ponds and apsaras playing veena and flute. Yet these carvings look untouched by time, as though preserved by ritual powders and sacred smokes. A single lamp flickers in a hanging niche, its flames steady against any breeze, a sentinel of light in a world of stone. Priests say that if Vault B is ever opened without proper rites, the lamp will extinguish and a darkness deeper than absence will descend upon the temple. Legends tell of thunder that split the skies, of statues weeping tears of blood, and of dreams in which the deity himself spoke warnings in a voice like rolling waves. Even skeptics concede that no mundane cause explains the seal's uncanny hold against pickaxes and chisels over centuries. In the hush, you consider whether uncovering the final vault is an act of historical reclamation or spiritual transgression. The treasures beneath could rewrite chapters of South Indian history, revealing lost trade routes, unknown dynasties, and previously unseen ritual objects. Yet the spectre of curse and catastrophe looms. Would you trade the temple's sanctity for the world's curiosity? Would you intrude upon divine trust for mere knowledge? As dawn's first rays filter through the sanctum's latticed window, the lamp above Vault B glows golden, and silent priests begin their hymn of obeisance. You step back, placing a final flower at the threshold. The vault remains sealed, its secrets intact. Outside, temple bells begin their morning toll, and devotees gather to witness the first light upon the deity's reclining form. A reminder that some mysteries dwell not to be solved, but to be honored. Some doors remain shut, but across the ice, some pyramids still stare back. Before the southern winds howl across the vast whiteness of Antarctica, imagine a silent plain of ice stretching farther than any map can hold. Beneath that frozen expanse lies a shape so precise it shimmers on satellite imagery, a pyramid rising. From the ice, at an almost algebraic angle, its snow-capped summit piercing the horizon like a sentinel from another age. You stand now at the edge of a glacial crevasse, boots crunching on wind-scoured snow, breath crystallizing in frigid air. Below, the ice shelves gleam in pale blue strata, their layers pressed by millennia of snowfall and weight. In the distance, the pyramid's outline appears, straight, angular, almost too perfect to be natural. Each of its 4 faces aligns, within minutes of true compass directions, as though carved by hands that knew both geometry and eternity. Descend carefully along a narrow ice ramp, guided by the crackle of frozen seracs. The wind's howl fades behind you, replaced by the hush of absolute stillness. Here, only the faint echo of your own heartbeat reminds you that you exist above ground. Step over a ridge of windblown powder and find a depression in the ice, a roofless chamber half buried beneath snowdrift. Crystalline walls rise on three sides, their surfaces polished by centuries of katabatic winds. In this chilly vestibule, you trace the edge of a perfect right angle, so precise that your ice axe's pick fits neatly into the joint. The walls meet at 90 degrees. A curvature emerges where erosion has softened one face, yet the line remains unnaturally straight. Feel the ice's cool solidity beneath your glove as you imagine ancient engineers chiseling blocks of limestone or granite, only for their work to be buried beneath sheets of ice and time. Move toward the pyramid's southern face, where a series of terraces emerges, platforms cut into the ice like steps toward the sky. Each terrace lies precisely 10 meters above the next, forming a staircase of frost that leads your gaze upward. Legends among explorers speak of stairways for gods, of lost civilizations forced underground by rising seas or shifting poles. Could this structure predate the ice that now entombs it? One theory holds that during warmer eras, perhaps in the Eemian interglacial period, sea levels were higher and climates milder. Civilizations near the poles might have thrived, carving monuments in limestone that only later fell silent, forgotten beneath advancing glaciers. You imagine those builders working under a pale sun, their footsteps echoing in open courtyards now sealed by ice. In that vanished warmth, the pyramid crowned a city whose names we may never know. Cross a narrow bridge of blue-white ice and peer into a pit where the pyramid's internal structure briefly shows itself. Horizontal strata of rock and stone beneath the snow. Satellite radar penetrates these layers, revealing geometric patterns that defy glacial flow. Radiometric dating of ice cores suggests these stone layers have lain undisturbed for upwards of 20,000 years, an age that predates recorded history. In that cold proof, you glimpse a timeline that stretches beyond human memory. As you explore the eastern corridor, a crevasse cleaving the pyramid's flank, you note how the walls bear carved niches, recesses shaped as though to hold torches or offerings. In each niche, ice stalactites hang like frozen torches. Tiny air bubbles trapped in the ice glint like captured candles, illuminating carvings that appear as faint reliefs, concentric circles, spiral motifs, and arrow symbols pointing skyward. Were these glyphs meant to guide travelers across the ice, or to map constellations in polar skies? Pause at the pyramid's corner, where the angle gleams under a shaft of sunlight filtered through high clouds. Here, the sun, low on the horizon even at midday, casts a long, perfect shadow that aligns with transects drawn by researchers to pinpoint the structure's orientation. The measurement is exact to within a fraction of a degree, a feat that astonishes glaciologists and archaeoastronomers alike. Such precision demands tools and knowledge far beyond simple survival in polar wastes. Follow the shadow's lead toward the center of the peak, where an opening yawns, a triangular aperture. Carved into the ice like the entrance to an ancient tomb, peer inside to see a chamber hewn below the surface, its walls smooth and polished. The air here is still colder, and your breath hangs unmoving before you. Within, a block of stone rests on a pedestal of ice, its surface etched with arcane symbols that resemble early runic scripts. Did they come from northern forests long drowned by ice, carried to this remote land by wanderers seeking refuge? Legends among modern explorers speak of Norse sagas that hint at polar wanderers, seafarers driven north by storms and currents. Could they have glimpsed this pyramid in eras when ice sheets were thinner? Or does the monument originate from another lineage entirely? A civilization predating Vikings, Sumerians, and the pharaohs alike? The lack of any sapper's traces in surrounding snow suggests the structure has been buried since at least the last glacial maximum, long before any known seafaring culture. As daylight wanes, the sky above deepens to indigo. The Southern Cross emerges faintly, its stars wheeling around the pole with slow, stately grace. Drawn by those constellations, ancient mariners might have navigated by the same sky, guided by patterns imprinted into this icy pyramid's walls. You imagine priests or stargazers ascending the pyramid's terraces on long nights, inscribing celestial lore into stone before retreating into warmth below. In the hush before night, let your mind rest on the question the pyramid poses. Who built this structure and why bury it beneath ice? Was it an act of funerary ritual entombing a lineage beneath glaciers, or a climatic time capsule preserving knowledge for a distant future? Perhaps the answer lies not in human records, but in the shifting layers of ice themselves, each stratum a page in a book written by wind and snow. Return now to the surface, retracing your path across the glacial plain. The wind rises again, carrying flakes of diamond dust across your goggles. Behind you, the pyramid sinks beneath a fresh drift, its shape softened by new snowfall. In that moment, you realize that the monument endures not only in stone, but in ice, in the delicate balance between preservation and impermanence. Climb back onto the research vessel's deck as dusk falls. The pyramid's silhouette fades into the gathering gloom, a phantom on the frozen sea. Warm yourself by the ship's lanterns, wrapping your parka tight, and let the image of precise angles and stair-stepped terraces linger in your mind. In sleep, dream of ancient builders carving geometry into rock, of stars turning above polar skies, and of a world where memory is carved not only in stone, but in every swirling flake of snow. And in the coldest places, the oldest myths flicker back to life. Before dawn's pale glow touches the tundra's frozen expanse, you arrive at a wind-swept plateau where the earth seems to ripple with hidden geometry. Here, in remote Siberia, lie a cluster of stone circles, mounds and spirals, megalithic formations whose age and purpose confound archaeologists. Imagine standing amid low rings of granite boulders, each stone frost-kissed and time-smoothed, encircling earthen mounds that rise like sentinels from snow-scoured grass. You press your gloved hand against a stone half buried in permafrost. Its surface bears faint grooves, deliberate striations worn by tool or ritual over generations. In the hush of Arctic wind, each ring, some 40 feet across, others mere yards in diameter, appears both deliberate and spontaneous, as though the land itself drew these patterns in a moment of dreaming. Circling one cluster, you note that the stones align to the cardinal points, their gaps oriented precisely to north, south, east, and west. Under low winter sun, long shadows cast by each stone stretch across the frozen ground like skeletal arms. Pointing skyward, you follow one shadow to its tip, where it intersects a shallow spiral carved in mossy earth. Spin that spiral from its outer edge inward, and you trace the path of the midnight sun's arc from its polar rise to its ghostly set, barely skimming the horizon. In midsummer, the sun circles overhead without dipping below the skyline. In midwinter, it barely peaks, lingering like a shy visitor. These stone grooves capture that dance of seasons in cold abstraction. Nearby, earthen mounds, some circular, some rectangular, rise a few feet above the plain. Within one, a central stone slab hints at a burial or ceremonial platform. Locals speak of Bronze Age chieftains interred here, their bodies wrapped in furs and offerings of bone-carved tools placed at their feet. Few excavations have been permitted. Permafrost preserves secrets, but rules forbid disturbance. Yet probes and ground-penetrating radar reveal anomalies, voids and stone-lined chambers suggesting sophisticated engineering beneath the mound's core. A thin film of ice glitters in a narrow channel between two circles, water that once routed through these formations, perhaps carrying offerings of blood, fish oil, or sacred water from a distant river. In summer, that channel would have filled from thaw and rain. In winter, it freezes into a mirror reflecting the pale sky. Imagine priests kneeling on curling frost, pouring libations into these channels as trumpets sounded in distant encampments. The echo of bronze horns might have rolled across the plain like thunder, calling clans together for rites of renewal. As you walk from circle to circle, you chart a pattern. 3 rings form a triangle whose center hosts a spiral, while to the west a line of 7 mounds arcs toward the horizon. Each formation's placement seems precise, yet defies any obvious agricultural or defensive purpose. Scholars propose astronomical observatory, territorial marker, or pilgrimage path, but none fully account for the pattern's mathematical rigor. Even LiDAR surveys struggle to explain why stones chosen so carefully should lie in such desolate isolation. In the grey light, you approach a spiral nearly 10 feet across, its channels carved with slight banking as if to guide fluid motion inward. At its heart rests a solitary standing stone, no more than 3 feet tall yet sculpted with concentric rings and radial lines. Carbon analysis of nearby charcoal finds dates around 1500 BCE, an era of Bronze Age horse riders and early metallurgy. Could mounted nomads have paused here, marking seasons or invoking sky spirits through this spiral of stone? Step back and view the spiral from above, either climbing a low ridge or via drone footage, and you see its true majesty. A perfect logarithmic curve that mirrors shells, galaxies, and the spiral arms of swans in flight. It is a form found in nature's grand design, here rendered in granite by human hands. In a land of extremes, this spiral seems an offering to order amidst chaos, a gesture of hope in a sun-sparse winter and a sun-dazzled summer. Toward the eastern horizon, you spy a line of upright stones, set at intervals along a straight ridge. Local legend calls this the Stonemen's Path, where ancestral tribes walked at dawn to greet the rising sun. Folklore speaks of elders leaving offerings at dawn, chanting prayers as the light streaked across each stone. You follow the line, counting 8 stelae, each hewn into rough diamond shapes pointing upward. Their spacing corresponds to the moon's cycle, 8 lunar phases from new to full, then onward into darkness again. On the northern edge, a pair of concentric circles surrounds a shallow basin. In the basin's center lies a carved platform, its surface worn smooth like a sacrificial altar. Study its geometry. The distance from center to inner ring equals the basin's diameter, a reflection of pi in granite form. Was this used to calculate calendars, to mark equinoxes, or simply to honor the land's inherent harmony? In this isolation, science and ritual blur. As you trek across the plain, the wind picks up, swirling snow into miniature vortices that dance across stone surfaces. You pause at one circle's southern entrance, an opening no wider than a man's shoulders, then lie prone on the frozen ground to look back. In that vantage, the stones frame the distant taiga and the jagged horizon of the polar Urals beyond. The land itself seems to acknowledge these circles, echoing their shapes in frozen lakes and snowdrifts. In the waning light, you gather at the largest ring, a 6-foot height of stones now draped in snow. A single torch flickers in your hand, its flame a fragile survivor of Arctic gusts. Place it at the ring's center and watch the shadows lengthen. Stones glow in amber reflections, and the spiral of mounds beyond catch the flicker in silent testimony. In that moment, the stones speak not in words, but in presence, a reminder that human will can shape the harshest landscapes into symbols of meaning. Lie on your back within the circle's embrace and let the wind's hush envelop you. Above, a veil of clouds parts just enough to reveal pole star's steady gleam. In Bronze Age nights, this same star guided travelers across steppes and tundra, a constant while seasons shifted wildly. The stones you trace now were placed by eyes that also found guidance in that solitary star. In your stillness, you feel connected across millennia to those who built and consecrated these stones. Now, as the Arctic night descends, pack away your torch and retreat from the plateau. Let the frozen monuments remain in their vigil beneath swirling snow. Carry their silent geometry into your dreams. A reminder that even in the farthest reaches of the world, the human impulse to shape Earth into meaning endures. Cold holds memory, but the fire of myth still burns deep underground. Before dawn's first glow warms California's Cascades, you find yourself at the foot of Mount Shasta, its snow-capped summit looming like a silent monarch in pale light. Among local legends, this mountain is more than volcanic peak. It is the gateway to an ancient fire-lit realm, home to the Fire People, descendants of a civilization that fled a sunken continent. Imagine mist rising from alpine meadows, carrying whispers of crystal spires carved beneath Shasta's slopes, where Lemurian survivors sought refuge in underground caverns of glowing gemstone. You walk along a moss-lined trail where fir and pine stand sentinel, their needles soft beneath your boots. The air is crisp, scented with resin and damp earth. Somewhere above, a robin's trill greets the sun. Here, native tales tell of a hidden entrance, a fissure in the mountain's western flank, sealed by time and guarded by spirits of smoke. As you near a rocky outcrop streaked with iron-rich veins, you sense the heat of subterranean fires, a faint hum as though the earth's heartbeat pulses beneath your feet. Pause at the mouth of a narrow cleft where steam drifts from dark crevices. In the hush, before wind stirs, feel the tremor of magma pathways deep within, ancient lifeblood that gave rise to obsidian blades and flame-tempered tools of the Fire People. Legend says they carved halls and sanctuaries far below, using volcanic glass to polish walls until they gleamed like stars trapped in stone. They built crystal columns that refracted torchlight into dancing rainbows and altars of polished quartz said to focus spiritual energy. Step carefully into the fissure, stooping beneath jagged basalt lips. Your headlamp reveals walls striated, with cooling flows, pillow lavas frozen in time, their curves melting into one another like spilled silk. Beneath these, ember-red streaks of oxidized iron glow faintly, as if Shasta remembers every eruption. Follow the path downward, where granite gives way to cavern floors littered with obsidian flakes, the detritus of ancient workshops. Each shard bears a flaked edge, whispering of hands that struck precise percussion to craft blades sharper than steel. In one chamber, the low ceiling opens onto a pool of crystal-clear water, heated by geothermal springs. Steam drifts across the surface, swirling like phantom dancers. The Fire People named this the Mirror of Memories, believing it reflected both past and future. Stoop and peer into its depths. Beneath the undulating surface, you see ghostly forms, stalactites of smoky quartz, tapering like frozen flames. Touch the water with a fingertip and feel warmth that tingles through your glove, as though the spring shares its heat with you. Cross a narrow lava bridge spanning a chasm of flickering ember light. In the depths below, sulphurous fumes glow green in crevices, revealing veins of native copper that once powered rudimentary lanterns carved from onyx and jade. The Fire People harnessed these veins to forge utensils and ornaments, their metalwork, bearing the soft sheen of dawn. Some say they wove copper filaments into crystalline circuitry, allegory perhaps, yet the notion of subterranean forges alive with molten metal feels entirely plausible amid these glowing walls. Advance to the Grand Gallery, a vast hall whose ceiling soars 30 feet overhead, supported by columns carved from solid quartzite. These columns are etched with the symbols of fire and water, interlocking spirals and flames, testaments to duality and balance. Torchlight plays across reliefs of serpents coiling around pillars, whales breaching crystal seas, and winged figures bearing torches toward cavern mouths. In that flicker, you imagine ceremonies where Fire People invoked volcanic power, marching through the hall in ritual procession, their torches reflecting 1,000-fold in polished walls. Toward the gallery's rear, a dais of black obsidian holds an altar carved in the form of a roaring flame. The Fire People filled its hollow with candlelight and sacred oils, juniper, sage, and cedar, to cleanse both spirit and flesh. Today, the altar's surface bears thin scars where metal, chalices once rested, and where offerings of pearl-white crystals shimmered amid molten wax. Above the altar, a skylight fracturing in the rock brings in a shaft of daylight, illuminating the flame-shaped sculpture as if the mountain itself breathed fire. Legends say that during Shasta's last eruption, the Fire People retreated deeper, still past known galleries into crystalline caverns where time stands still. There, the heart of their culture pulses, untouched by ash or flood. They preserved their rituals in song, carved into walls that resonate when wind blows across mountain vents. Some explorers report hearing distant echoes, soft chanting, the rhythmic tapping of crystal against crystal, carried on the breeze through hidden fissures. As you return toward the entrance, pass through an archway marked by 2 monolithic pillars of polished ruby feldspar, their hue shifting from rose to orange in your headlamp's beam. These mark the boundary between common halls and sacred sanctuaries. Beyond them lies a corridor veined with gold mica, walls glittering like molten dawn. Every step along this corridor crunches on fragments of garnet and mica, as though you walk upon fallen embers. Feel the weight of hidden wealth as the walls shimmer around you. Emerging once more into the forested slope, the air feels cooler, the breeze carrying cedar and pine. Above, Shasta's peak glows pink in morning light. Look back at the fissure's mouth, a dark slit in rocky flank, knowing that beyond it lies a world where flame and crystal converge in perfect harmony. As legend tells, the Fire People remain a lineage of guardians, their descendants hiding in plain sight among forest cabins, preserving knowledge in whispered lore and soft chanting beneath starlit skies. Surface researchers debate how much is legend and how much reflects actual subterranean engineering. Geothermal maps reveal heat anomalies tied to ancient lava tubes. Ground-penetrating radar hints at chambers yet unentered. Some scholars equate these with rumored Lemurian halls, while others see natural lava formations carved over centuries. In either case, the interplay of mythology and geology shapes a story that weaves Shasta's fiery core into human imagination. As evening shadows fall on alpine meadows, let the mountain's silhouette settle in your mind. Picture the fire people raising crystal lanterns in hidden sanctuaries, their voices rising in solemn song beneath glowing walls. Feel the pulse of molten earth beneath rock, a reminder that creation and destruction dwell side by side, shaping both land and lore. Now return to your campfire at Shasta's base. Let the mountain's hush and its subterranean fire warm your thoughts. Close your eyes and hear the distant echo of crystal halls and chanting voices. In that resonance, carry the memory of a civilization forged in flame and hidden in stone, where myth and geology entwine in luminous embrace. From crystal to dust, let us return to a city drowned by God or flood. Before dawn's first breeze stirs the waves of the Arabian Sea, you stand on the sandy shore near modern Dwarka, where ancient legends whisper of a city built by gods and claimed by the tides. Imagine temples rising from the water's edge, pillared, halls of sandstone and marble, their towers crowned with sculpted finials that once gleamed in sunlight. Now only wave-battered stones peek above the surf, hinting at sanctuaries submerged beneath cerulean depths. You step into shallow water, sandals pressed with warm, wet sand. The tide laps gently against half-buried blocks, and the salty air carries the faint echo of temple bells long silenced. Here, in the 1980s, marine archaeologists discovered rows of dressed stones, carved blocks and sandstone walls lying in neat courses beneath 6 to 8 meters of water. Sonar scans reveal streets, shrines, and what may be granaries, all arrayed in orderly grid, an urban plan that resonates with descriptions in ancient texts. Wade further into the shallows and your fingers brush a smooth pillar drum, evenly circular, its fluted surface worn by currents, but still bearing the faint imprint of lotus relief. Next to it, a carved block bears the image of a makara, mythical sea creature, half crocodile, half fish, its jagged teeth framed in curling arabesques. These carvings, once painted in vibrant pigments, now bear only traces of the ochre and indigo that artists applied for temple festivals. Under your lamp at dusk, those pigments glimmer like smudged jewels hidden in the stone. Step off the sandy bottom onto a low wall that slopes beneath the waves. It feels unnaturally smooth, stone-hewn and fitted without mortar. Follow the wall's line to where it meets a submerged plinth, the foundation of what was once a Shiva temple, its sanctum lost to the surging tides. Marine life has claimed these ruins. Barnacles cling to carved capitals, seaweed drapes across broken architraves, and schools of colourful parrotfish dart through open doorways like living offerings. The interplay of coral and carving creates a tableau, both ancient and alive. In a deeper channel, divers discovered steps leading down from dry land to a now vanished landing dock. Imagine priests carrying images of Krishna, dwelling hero of Dwarka, down those steps in procession, their voices rising in chant as they passed beneath temple gateways. Beneath the waves, you trace the outline of those steps, worn smooth by sandal and hoof, now encrusted with bivalves. Each edge remains remarkably straight, a testament to skilled masons who carved these terraces for devotees to approach the water's edge in worship and ritual bath. Across the submerged precinct, you find carved stone balls, bowling ball-sized, embedded in channels between blocks. Archaeologists theorize these were weight bearings for temple doors, keeping massive wooden portals aligned. In the current, some have rolled free, revealing hemispherical sockets cut into threshold stones. Touch one of these sockets and feel the cool concavity, evidence of technology folded into sacred design, where utility and divinity intertwined seamlessly. Pause at a cluster of column drums lying in a circular arrangement. Local lore says this was the base of the Vasudeva temple, where Krishna's image once glowed with saffron lamplight. Now its pieces lie like fallen sentinels, each drum carved with alternating bands of lotus and palmette motifs. In the gloom, you sense the echo of cymbals clashing and conches sounding, calling worshippers to the deity's presence. The drum's fallen arrangement still suggests the circular sanctum that once rose here, an axis mundi binding earth and divine. Survey the wider seascape. Lines of submerged walls extend parallel to shore, following streets described in the Mahabharata as wide enough for chariots to race at dawn. Sonar maps overlay these walls with modern channels, revealing that some roadways still function as natural watercourses, carrying currents through ruins once baked by the sun. In that blending of ancient plan and present sea, you see how nature reclaimed the city's grid, carving pathways where once carts rolled and pilgrims trod. Toward mid-afternoon, currents shift and drift silver schools through broken corridors where inner sanctuaries once stood. In a deeper pit, a large stone block carved with a coiled naga, serpent deity, rests at the edge of a collapsed roof slab. Locals believe that these serpent images were guardians of the city's foundations, channels of protective energy woven into the very stones. Underwater, you watch rasa circle the naga's head like attendants in ritual homage, their bodies flashing emerald and gold in the shaft of diver lights. In the 2000s, archaeologists dredged pottery shards from the same site, black and red, where carnelian beads and fragments of amphorae bearing Mediterranean stamps. These finds speak of Dwarka's maritime trade with far-flung ports in Greece and Mesopotamia. Picture merchant ships, lateen-rigged dhows anchored offshore, cargoes of spices, textiles, and sacred relics exchanged beneath oversized temple shadows. Now amphora shards lie scattered among the pillars, silent witnesses to a network that linked continents through sea and faith. As evening's glow softens, you rest on the deck of a research vessel, watching divers ascend in columns of bubbles. They emerge carrying small finds, broken icon fragments, chiseled fragments of relief, and tablets of limestone inscribed in ancient Brahmi script. Epigraphers pore over these inscriptions in lamplit labs, trying to match names of kings in stone to lineages in Puranic lore. Each new match deepens the portrait of a thriving port city, one that stood at the threshold of myth and history. Before you leave, return to the shallow ruins at low tide. Walk through ankle-deep water between half-sunken walls, tracing the outline of a mandapa whose pillars once supported carved ceilings. Touch a fluted shaft and feel its wet smoothness, a direct link to sculptors who balanced hammer and chisel beneath open sky. Above, shorebirds wheel in loops, their cries echoing across water and stone as though offering a final benediction to a drowned temple. As night falls, let the waves lap your knees in rhythmic murmur. Close your eyes and hear the quiet hymn of sea against stone, the slow cadence of tides breathing life into ruins. Imagine Krishna's song rising through shadowed corridors, a melody woven into the sound of currents and the hush of barnacle. In that moment, you carry the memory of temples lost to flood, and the knowledge that even gods, when they walk among mortals, must sometimes yield to earth's tides. Where gods once walked, giants may have knelt. Long before Europe's medieval forests fell to axe and plough, travelers told of colossal skeletons unearthed in ancient barrows and riverbanks, bones so large that they could only belong to beings of mythic stature. Imagine shards of femur 20 inches across, skull fragments wider than any human head, and rib cages tall enough to stand within. These were the bones of giants scattered across continents and buried beneath layers of time. Your search leads you first to a windswept moor in northern England, where peat bogs occasionally yield human remains and artifacts. Beneath turf and sphagnum, local lore holds that the bodies of forgotten chiefs lie buried, men and women of towering height, interred with grave goods of bronze and iron. In the 19th century, peat cutters reported uncovering a jawbone so massive it took 4 men to lift. Though scientists attributed such finds to misidentified whale bones or exaggerated accounts, the legends persist in hushed village pubs and dusty parish records. Crossing the Atlantic, you arrive at the Mississippi River's banks, where Native American mounds once crowned bluffs. Early settlers spoke of skeletons nearly 10 feet tall, buried with stone tools and copper ornaments. The Smithsonian's journals from the late 1800s include mentions of oversized crania, brow ridges prominent, cheekbones jutting like carved stone. Skeptics dismissed these as anomalies or mismeasurements, yet local oral histories speak of clan elders teaching that these burials belonged to Thunder People, giants of sky and storm who ruled before the flood. Venturing northwest, you find yourself in the Columbia Plateau, where glacial deposits occasionally reveal oversized bones. Ranchers recall clearing fields of petrified tusks and ribs that they later sold for scrap or used as fence posts. In barn rafters across Idaho and Montana, some still display massive vertebrae believed to be mammoth, yet their proportions sometimes exceed even those of Ice Age proboscideans. When tested, a few yielded bone collagen, tying them to Pleistocene megafauna. Others showed human-like histology, deepening the mystery. Journeying south, your next destination is South America's Pampas, where gauchos spoke of cairns marking the graves of Antu chiefs, giants of Mapuche legend who strode with war clubs taller than a man. In one abandoned mission church, fragments of a jawbone rested in a dusty glass case, 6 inches wide, its canine sockets large enough to cradle a fist. Researchers revisiting the site found Museo de la Plata records noting measurements that defied ordinary human scales, yet many of these records vanished in a fire decades ago. In West Africa's Niger Bend, you trace stories among Dogon storytellers of sky people tall as palm trees, whose bones were said to lie in caves inaccessible to village hunters. Anthropologists reported hearing accounts of elongated femora buried beneath rocky overhangs, so deep that guides refused to venture. Satellite imagery of the plateaus reveals cave entrances marked by stone piles, Hain stones, yet no formal excavation has ever been permitted, preserving these legends in living memory. Back in Europe, you stand at an archaeological dig in Denmark, where Neolithic burial mounds are carefully opened. One mound yields a femur nearly 2 feet long, far larger than any known human equivalent. Radiocarbon dating places it around 2500 BCE, and DNA analysis suggests hominin lineage, though with unusual markers. The lab struggles to reconcile a tall individual, well over 10 feet tall, with population genetics that show no such variation in height. They shelve the findings, fearing pushback, and the bone returns to cold storage. On remote Pacific islands, you hear Polynesian chants of tuku-tuku, giants of ancestral lore, whose images appear in cave paintings larger than life. In New Zealand's South Island, Maori elders point to a rocky bluff called Te Warangi, where the outline of a reclining
figure stretches for hundreds of feet.
Eroded headstones and scattered cairns nearby suggest ceremonial burials, yet no skeletal remains have been formally documented. Only rock cairns and whispered warnings that some places are tapu, not to be disturbed. Across Russia's northern reaches, reindeer herders tell of immense graves in taiga clearings, shallow pits lined with stone slabs, each containing bones far larger than any known human. Soviet expeditions recorded fragments, collarbones as broad as shields, phalanges wider than bridle straps. Official reports attributed them to Pleistocene bears. Local accounts insisted they belonged to ancient men touched by the gods. The fields of giant bones remained largely unexplored during political upheavals, leaving a trail of half-recorded notes and fading oral tales. In India's Deccan Plateau, villages in Karnataka still show foreign travelers a hulking skull cap, unearthed near a temple pond, a bone so large it was used to roof a shrine for generations before experts identified it. It now resides in a local museum labeled Elephant Bulla, but villagers insist it came from a man 6 cubits tall. When you handle it, the thickness and cranial vault shape differ subtly from known elephants, though theory offers no conclusive resolve. What unites these tales and finds is the pattern of disappearance. Giant bones appear, are measured, sometimes studied, then vanish, dismissed as hoaxes, misidentifications, or lost in bureaucratic oblivion. Yet the persistence of local lore, repeated across cultures and continents, suggests more than coincidence. The giants, whether mythical, human, or hybrid, reside at the edge of recorded history, beckoning us to reconsider the scale of ancient human variation. In modern times, a few researchers have revisited museum basements, employing CT scans and isotopic analysis on stored giant bones. Some tests yield unexpected results: growth rings inconsistent with normal human metabolism, bone density more akin to large mammals. Yet skepticism remains rooted in mainstream reluctance to accept extremes of human height beyond the realm of documented genetics. Standing now among the fields of Europe's West Kennet Long Barrow, where tall ancestral tombs still stand, you ponder the ratio of legend to evidence. Each site holds a fragment of possibility. A jawbone too large for any man, a thigh bone measuring beyond known human height, a rib cage too broad for ordinary breath. Perhaps the giants lived on the margins, ancestral lineages that dwindled into myth as climates changed, as breeding populations shifted, and as their bones succumbed to time's grind. As dusk falls on your final hominid horizon, you light a lantern by a reconstructed megalith. Its shadow stretches tall across the grass, a reminder that human history may yet hold surprises in skeletons half forgotten. In your mind, you carry the shapes of expanded femora and broadened collarbones, the names of giants known only in local tongues. Rongo the Tall in Maori lore, Kanane the Mountain in Sioux stories, Yogra in Rajasthan's desert legends. Sleep comes beneath that lantern's glow, and in dreams you walk among titanic bones arranged in spirals and circles across all lands. The giants' stories weave into yours, footsteps that echoed across moors, battle cries that stirred rivers, songs that rose above storm-lashed cliffs. And when you awaken, you carry the question carved in each fragment. Did these giants truly walk among us? Or were they echoes of humanity's vision of itself, projected onto bone, stone, and story? The earth forgets slowly, and its oldest story may yet remain. Before dawn's first hush, settles across ruined cities and submerged sanctuaries, you stand at the crossroads of every vanished wonder, where Atlantis's ruins meet the whispering walls of Harappa, where the maze of Egypt converges with the megaliths of Baalbek. Here, memory itself takes form, woven from fragments of stone, water, and sky, refusing to dissolve into silence. You walk through an open plain where shards of broken column drums mingle with fragments of pottery, spilled treasures from every
ancient empire. In one hand, you hold a bronze gear from the Antikythera Mechanism. In the other, a chipped seal from Mohenjo-Daro's citadel.
Feel their weight not as burdens, but as vessels carrying voices, the gear's calibrated teeth echoing Hellenistic starlight, the seal's symbols murmuring marketplaces long stilled. Below your feet, paths converge, ancient trackways that once guided traders, pilgrims, and conquerors. You trace a worn groove carved by sandstone rollers at Baalbek, then step onto the shallow channel used for rituals at Yonaguni. Each indentation is a heartbeat of memory, the repeated passage of human purpose, a pattern of need and wonder, of faith and ambition, recorded in stone and sediment. In the distance, dunes rise like tombs, echoes of the lost labyrinth of Egypt. Now buried beneath desert sands, a sudden gust stirs the golden grains, revealing an archway's keystone inscribed with the Ankh. You pause, breath mingling with dust, sensing how memory resurfaces when you least expect it. One wind-blown ripple,
unveiling a doorway long sealed.
The labyrinth's hidden chambers awaken not in flesh but in thought, whispering their riddles through the hollow stones. Follow a faint scent of salt and spice to a sunken channel where Dwarka's temple blocks lie half submerged. Here, fish weave through shattered reliefs of macaras and palmettes, as though tending a submerged museum. Yet every carved motif remains legible, an imprint of the city's devotion preserved in coral and silt. Dive downward, and memory becomes tactile. The smooth curve of a lathe-turned column, the chipped edge of a sculpted face, each detail resilient against currents of time. Rise again and wander into a grove of sentinel stones, the Arctic circles, that shouldn't exist, arranged as if mapping the sky's rotation. In twilight, their shadows form spirals across frozen earth, tracing the path of the sun as it loops above the horizon. Here, memory endures in geometry, a silent calendar etched into tundra. Each stone a monument to seasons and stars, to human longing to chart the heavens. Press on to a hidden valley where Longyou's caves yawn beneath a placid pond. Enter their vaulted halls where chisel grooves lap like waves upon siltstone walls. Light filters in from above like drifting moths, illuminating benches carved from living rock, a communal archive of labor and silence. The caves hold memory in grooves and grain, the rhythmic pattern of tool marks echoing 1,000 unseen hours, a record of collective breath in stone. Cross to a mountainside corridor, the Fire People's caverns beneath Shasta, where quartz columns shimmer with torchlight. Their crystal faces reflect prayers chanted in subterranean halls, as if memory itself crystallizes in stone. Hear the faint hum of geothermal springs, the distant crackle of obsidian flakes underfoot, and know that memory resists oblivion when nourished by reverent ritual. Above, the giant pyramid of Antarctica pierces frozen air, a paradox of geometry and ice. Its terraces aligned compass points, its corridors hint at civilizations buried by climatic tides. Stand at its summit and feel the pull of memory upward towards stars that guided ancient builders. In that ascent, memory becomes aspiration, a yearning to bridge earth and sky, to inscribe human purpose into cosmic order. Descend into a valley of gnarled oaks, where stones from Sacsayhuamán's ramparts lie scattered among wildflowers. Each fitted block retains the precise interlocking seam. It was carved to resist earthquakes and time alike. Touch the seam and imagine hands chipping mortarless joints in the thin mountain air. Feel memory as resilience, the enduring testament of communities that built not for kings, but for shared strength. Wander on to Ellora's inverted temple, its cave-carved halls a reversal of expectation. Stone becomes sanctuary, surface becomes
void. Here, memory is inversion. The earth peeled away to reveal a sacred heart, carved in relief and hollowed in reverence.
Each sculpted dancer, each lotus petal overhead, carries the memory of artisans who shaped their temple by removing, not adding, a lesson in how absence can speak as loudly as presence. Pause beside the sealed vaults of Padmanabhaswamy, where iron seals guard gold that speaks of devotion and dread. Vault B remains closed, its legend woven into the temple's ritual life. In its shadow, memory becomes myth, a boundary between revelation and respect, where some secrets remain sacred precisely because they are denied. Stand before the seal
and sense the weight of collective restraint, the power of memory held in trust rather than claim. Gather now at Stonehenge's circle, where stones reach skyward like silent witnesses.
Place your palm on one sarsen and feel its lichened soft surface. Sense the chill of dawn that still aligns its axis to solstice light. Here, memory is embodied in alignment, a yearly ritual of stone and sun, of people returning in procession to rekindle ancient concord. The monument demands remembrance, not solution, a living pact between earth and sky. Return to Baalbek's trilithon and imagine the quarries from which those stones came. Envision the chants of workers guiding each 1,250-ton block home. Memory, here is muscle and chant, the rhythmic labor of countless arms, the communal song that coaxed stone across miles. Stand among those giants and feel your own heartbeat merge with that long-ago chorus. As the sun sets over this confluence of wonders, light scatters through stone and water, through submerged pillars and crystal caverns, through cave-cut corridors and desert sands. Memory dances in those shafts of light, in the echo of chisels, in the hush of collapsing tides. In each relic, each imprint, each seal and groove, memory endures. An inheritance passed from hand to hand, from age to age. Lie down on a grassy knoll overlooking this panorama of ruins and relics. Let your breath slow as you feel the land beneath. You pulse with memory's heartbeat. Above, stars wheel in silent orbits. Below, Earth holds its stories in rib and column, in cave and corridor. In that communion, you become memory's vessel. A living archive bearing witness to mysteries that refuse to die. And when you close your eyes, carry this truth into your dreams, that nothing vanishes entirely. Each stone, each block, each carved, relief and submerged temple lives on in the hush, between breaths, in the spark of wonder that rises whenever we remember. The world forgets slowly, and memory, once inscribed in earth and sky, refuses to remain buried. Before the final breath of twilight fades into star-blanketed night, you stand upon an open plain strewn with fragments of every vanished marvel, a mosaic of broken column drums, half-buried gears, and sea-worn stones. Beneath a shroud of wind-blown dust lies the dream. Beneath the dust, the quiet promise that even when empires crumble and emblems fade, the spark of memory endures in restless sleep. You close your eyes and feel a gentle sigh ripple through the earth, as though worlds exhale beneath your feet. In that exhalation, you hear the echo of countless footsteps, traders crossing desert sands, pilgrims circling henges, potters shaping clay by Nile's edge, and dreamers tracing star charts by flickering lamp. Each footfall is a note in a grand nocturne, carried on currents of forgetting and remembering, until all voices merge into one soft refrain. Open your eyes and let the plain before you dissolve into shifting visions. First, you see the marble gleam of Atlantis's halls, half submerged beneath blue-green waters, lanterns still flickering in coral-laced corridors. Next, the Indus seals float like moth wings across sun-baked bricks, their undeciphered script fluttering in the heat haze. Then you glimpse the lost city of Z, jagged pillars draped in vines that sway without wind, as if breathing on their own. Each vision fades into dust, and from that dust rises the labyrinth of Hawara's collapsed colonnades. You trace its broken reliefs, ankh, serpent, falcon, swirling upward like smoke wreaths, only to disperse and give way to the silent tomb of Giza's empty sarcophagus. You stand within its cool, precise angles, feeling the phantom weight of millions of tons of stone pressing down, a silent lullaby of geometry and ambition. The panorama shifts again. You stand on Sacsayhuamán's terraces where every interlocking block fits with fractal perfection. In the hush, you hear the echo of rolling stones and shouts of workers chanting in the thin Andean air. The stones themselves murmur in response, content to pass through centuries unbowed, reminding you that human will, when honed by respect for earth and sky, endures beneath the dust of time. Suddenly, you drift into the Osirion's sunken hall, water lapping at submerged pavement. Light filters downward, fracturing into rainbows across granite pillars. You see the face of Ankefenkonsu carved in shadow, and you feel the hush of priests chanting by candlelight, echoes that ripple through water and memory alike. The stones shift beneath you, and you arrive at the Yonaguni terraces, their right angles rising through salt-bright sea. You feel the pull of tides, cycles of inundation and revelation that mirror the rise and fall of every human endeavor. The dream, beneath the dust is this tide, the promise that when stones vanish beneath waves or sand, they re-emerge in dreams, carried by each new watcher. A soft wind carries you inland to Longyou's grooved caverns, where every chisel mark is a syllable in a subterranean script. You trace the rhythmic lines as though reading a poem written in stone, each groove a breath of ancestors who shaped darkness into chambers of contemplation. In that hush, you recognize the dream, the impulse to pierce silence with purpose, to carve meaning from emptiness, leaving behind a song that can be heard only in stillness. Your gaze lifts to Kailasa's inverted temple, a mountain carved downward, an axis that reaches heaven by descending into earth. You stand beneath lotus petal ceilings and feel the weight of removal, the shedding of rock to reveal sanctuary. Here, the dream, beneath the dust speaks of reversal, that sometimes creation lies in subtraction, and that the deepest truths are hewn by surrender, not addition. You step back onto open ground and feel the ground shift underfoot, carrying you to Padmanabhaswamy's sealed vaults. Iron seals click softly in your mind, warding off curiosity and inviting reverence. In Vault B's darkness, you sense the heartbeat of temple priests, their chants rising as guardians of unclaimed treasures. The dream here is sacred restraint, that some knowledge, some memory, is too potent to be unearthed, and that silence itself can be an offering. The landscape dissolves once more into the grasses of Stonehenge's circle. You walk between sarsens as dawn light caresses the lintels, aligning sky and stone in a silent dialogue. Here, the dream. Beneath the dust is cyclical, each solstice a return, each stone a marker in an endless conversation between Earth's tilt and human wonder. Your path winds ever onward, to Baalbek's trilithon, to Dwarka's drowned shrines, to Antarctica's icy pyramid, to Siberian circles under aurora-lit skies, to Shasta's crystal caverns and the giant's bones buried in moors and mounds. At each location you glimpse the same refrain. That memory survives in physical form, in echo and imprint, in geometry and myth, in submerged pillars and buried vaults. Now stand at the threshold of all these visions, where dust and dream converge. Breathe in the hush of settling particles, the hush of centuries folding inward like pages, closing on ancient scrolls. Feel the hush as comfort, not loss, a reminder that endings are but preludes to remembrance. The dream beneath the dust is this quiet conviction that no matter how deeply stories lie buried, they await rediscovery in each attentive heart. As night deepens, lie back upon this plain of echoes. Let the starlight scatter across your closed eyelids like dust motes in a sunbeam. In that gentle dark, carry the dream forward, the promise that every ruin, every fragment, every whispered legend becomes living memory when we dream it anew. May the echoes of ancient stones and sunken sanctuaries drift softly through your dreams, guiding you toward new awakenings beneath the hush of dawn. Good night.